Alors, bonsoir. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting for April 14th, 2025. So roll call. All members of council are present. We'll stand for territorial acknowledgement statement, a moment of reflection.
We acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Kanyen-Kahaka peoples. And we acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within.
Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur les principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle.
Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Alors, on avance au numéro 4, addition, deletions or amendments. We have 3 additions sent in by Councillor Deacon. So the first one is approach buffering land, so 18A. 18B, construction along Notre Dame, upcoming construction. And 18C, tree bylaw. Is that correct, Councillor Deacon?
For the first one that you mentioned,
Yep.
if we could just title it West Side 417 Industrial Park Buffer.
So West Side 417
Industrial Park
Industrial Park Buffer. Thank you. Any other additions or deletions, members of council? Seeing none. All right, so I have motion to approve the agenda as amended, and this is moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you very much. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Je n'en vois pas. Merci. Numéro 7, adoption des procès-verbaux. Procès verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 24 mars 2025. Motion d'approuver le procès-verbal tel que présenté. And this is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Deacon. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Merci. Numéro 8, présentation, on n'en a pas. Numéro 9, délégation. Alors, on a une pétition, petition presented by Deborah Guilbeault and Rob Doucet on behalf of the Pickleball Advisory Committee. So, Ms. Guilbeault and Mr. Doucet, if you want to stand and just come to the podium. And we have received the package. But go ahead. The floor is yours if you just want to make sure that the mic is on.
Testing.
Yeah, you're good. All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Guilbeault and Bob Doucet. We are 2/5 of the Pickleball Advisory Committee for this area, but most particularly for the folks who play at the Dome. Shortly after the recreation staff tried a new approach to registration a few months ago, there was quite a lot of concern expressed by the pickleball community. We felt that the time had come to organize ourselves and to try and have a unified voice at the table. Since that time, we've made good connections with staff, and we hope to have an ongoing dialogue with respect to this growing sport. In January of this year, it came to our attention that there was a recommendation made to designate outdoor courts as single sport venues for tennis or pickleball. The pickleball community has about 300 participants, and it grows every year. Like golf, it is a sport that many people can enjoy well into their senior years, so its popularity can't be understated. Given that, the more spaces that are made available, the better it is, especially if we're dedicated to healthy living opportunities in Russell Township. Our petition of 209 signatures merely asks for the status quo, that all outdoor courts remain multi-purpose, that all lines remain painted so that both sports can be played. If we observe the posted guidelines for use, then tennis and pickleball players should be able to coexist. It is our understanding that nothing is about to change anytime soon on the outdoor courts, given the full review that PRAC will be doing later this year. But we still wanted to present this petition to let you know that our committee exists and that we welcome the opportunity to work with staff to provide the best opportunities possible. We would especially appreciate consultation when changes are being made, and our committee's input might help guide you in your decision-making. We hope that PRAC will reach out to us because we have some ideas to share. So we just wanted to touch base.
Fantastic. So a couple of points, and then we'll pass it on to Madame Guittard as well. So first of all, Deborah and Bob, thank you very much for your leadership and volunteering and doing that. Really appreciate it. I echo your sentiments about the popularity of the sport and the desire for this community to be able to offer the best facilities for our residents. So thank you for doing that. 209 names on your petition is remarkable, so that's really appreciated as well. So again, I think that's great to see the involvement. So I think this council has heard that loud and clear. Madame Guittard, anything to comment in terms of the upcoming review of the master plan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So just maybe to clarify that later this year, the master plan study will be conducted. In fact, it's going to start very soon. So during the year, we will be holding some stakeholder meetings. We will have an open house, and that's all part of the recreation master plan study. The PRAC will be participating as a committee, and then all the recommendations will be put in the final version of the master plan, which will come to the council probably early January, February of next year, and this is when the recommendations will be available to the council. Obviously, like we mentioned, there will be some consultation, and nothing will be done before talking to all the user groups. So this is the clarification we wanted to bring tonight.
Merci beaucoup. Just further clarifications, is it fair to assume that like all master plans that go through, there is the input period, there is a review period as well where we can get, once we have like a first draft out for the residents or for the community to see and so on, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. There's always a review period to let people be aware of what is being proposed. And like I said, because of the stakeholder meetings and the open house, people will have a chance to voice their opinion, their ideas.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Lauren.
This one is for Mr. Godin, Mr. Dagenet. So with pickleball being such a fast-growing sport, not just in our municipality, but across the world, I know we've been talking about this for many, many years, about the possibility of having a area for pickleball, like a court system or whatever, specifically for pickleball. As part of our DC study that's coming up, I believe, Mr. Godin, I think you said this year or early next year is our DC study?
Mr. Godin?
Merci, Mr. Maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du conseil. We've kicked off the DC study
Okay.
review, so it's this year.
So is this not something that, because we don't currently have a facility like that for specifically for pickleball, and based on the growth of the municipality, that this should be entertained as something that we could put in the DC charges and therefore have growth pay for some of this possible future facility?
Monsieur Godin?
Oh, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So definitely any facilities or assets that will be added to the inventory as a result of growth can be added to the DC study. So although the DC study will probably be finished before the Parks and Rec master plan, we'll still be working in collaboration as far as making sure that we're considering all the draft plans or anything that comes out of those discussions.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I truly believe that because of the growth of pickleball, that we should have a dedicated area for pickleball specifically, so that you're not fighting with the other users who are trying to get on the courts as well. Whose time is it? Who can go on? Who can't go on? And, you know, a facility that can be utilized all year round, right? It doesn't have to just be a fair weather sport. It could be an all-year sport. So I think that's definitely something that we should be looking at as a municipality, and hopefully we can get that included in our DC study. And hopefully, if that's the case, then we can look at reserving for that and getting something done sooner rather than later.
That would be fabulous.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask a question? What's the DC study?
Oh,
Development
sorry.
charges. So development charges, because of new homes being built, developers, there are charges to pay for libraries, added use on our infrastructure and so on. So some of the growth, so as soon as there's growth, those DCs help pay for that growth. So
Okay.
it's a great comment, absolutely. Any other questions or comments, members of council? Thank you very much. It's on record. Really appreciate, again, your leadership on this. Mr. Doucet, you have a... If you can just go to the mic, though, because it's for the record as well.
Are there timelines for the input process and the review process?
For the master plan, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The only thing that I can tell you right now, we closed the tender about a week and a half ago, so we have not awarded the contract yet. And then we could see probably stakeholder meetings, open house, early fall, I would say. Because there's
Okay.
lots of work to be done by the consultant.
And so, Madame Guittard, so we'll have their data or details on record as organizers, stakeholders, to make sure that
Yeah,
we reach
and
out to you. Yeah.
everything will be made public, so if you follow.
Yeah, keep an eye on that.
Follow
and-
the municipal news, you will see all our invitations for the open house and then the stakeholder meetings.
Yeah, and you can feel free to connect to any of us here on council as well if you have any questions pertaining to that. We're all familiar with the timeline. So, again, thank you very much, and keep pickling. No, keep. Yeah, you bet.
All right, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Cheers. Merci. All right, excellent. Moving to item 10. Consent items. So all items listed under consent items will be enacted by one motion. A majority vote is required for the adoption of the consent items. There will be no separate discussions on these unless a request is made prior to the time to separate the item. Prior to the time that council votes on the motion, that a consent item be separated from the motion. And then if there is a separated item, that shall be considered immediately after. So motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. And this is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. And I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Merci beaucoup. Keep my pages separate so I don't make any mistakes. Alors, on passe au numéro 11, rapport des départements et comités du conseil. Alors, 11A, achat d'un camion de pompe de sauvetage pour le service des incendies, rapport FIRE 2025-02. Chief, I see you've got a team here, so anything to add to the report?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. This evening, with the members of my Fire Services Fire Truck Committee behind me, we present to council for consideration a request to purchase a new pump rescue which is replacing 2 aging fire trucks in our Station 12 in Russell. Our committee consists of firefighters from both fire stations. They have met numerous times, reviewed various options, and looked at different models of vehicles available on the market. As noted in our report, we have an opportunity to purchase this new vehicle from our local fire truck manufacturer, Battle Shield Industries in Vars. Battle Shield has a stock chassis that's on order and is not currently subject to any tariffs. And the vehicle can be manufactured here in Vars and delivered before the end of the year. The fire truck chassis in general are all made in the US, and we've been advised that future chassis purchases will be affected by tariffs. The vehicle that we would like to purchase is very similar to that of Clarence Rockland and La Nation that was purchased in 2024. They did go out to tender at that time for their vehicles, and only 2 manufacturers submitted to their tender, one of them being Battle Shield as a successful bidder. The second bidder was a Canadian dealer of a US manufactured truck who sells fire trucks from the US. There are 8 manufacturers in Canada who manufacture fire trucks. However, the chassis are all still purchased in the US. There are 2 manufacturers in Ontario, one of them being Battle Shield, the other one's in Toronto. There are 2 manufacturers in Quebec, and then they're in New Brunswick, Manitoba, and BC. However, there are several Canadian dealers across Canada, including several in Ontario, who do sell US fabricated trucks. Once we do, if we do purchase this vehicle, we put the used apparatuses either on Gov Deals or the manufacturer, Battle Shield, could take them as a replacement to reduce the cost of the project. So in conclusion, with your approval, the fire service is recommending to piggyback off of that 2024 contract from Clarence Rockland and La Nation for the contract amount of $788,000 before tax. And we also would have to be buying some new equipment on the aging trucks, and that we're estimating approximately $120,000 for equipment, loose equipment that goes on the truck, like ladders and hoses and that kind of stuff. So thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Chief. So a couple of questions from the get-go. So this will consolidate to one vehicle, what was traditionally 2 vehicles, correct?
So that's correct. So we have 2 vehicles, a 1999 and a 95, a pumper and a rescue, and it'll be consolidated into one vehicle called a pump rescue, and those equipments will be combined onto one vehicle.
Okay, excellent. And in terms of the project itself and the budget, just to confirm, this was part of our budget for our capital expenses for the coming 2 years, correct? That was the plan?
That's correct. So there was $500,000 initially for this year and $500,000 for 2026.
Okay, and so that there are reserves for that, Monsieur Dagenet, de votre côté, oui? Okay, merci. And also, I'll be the first, and I know that I'm not the only one on council that really does not support single source. We like to push for, to make sure as many bids come out as possible. The argument that's given that Clarence Rockland went to tender and Battle Shield won the tender based on a similar purchase, or pretty much identical purchase, correct?
So that's correct. We would be taking the exact same spec and going out to tender if we were to go tendering.
Okay, so they are giving us the 2024 price that the tender that Rockland received.
That's correct. He's honoring the 2024
Okay,
pricing.
which is fantastic, I think. And can I confirm it was just Rockland? Was it Nation as well that had a purchase?
It was a combined purchase with Rockland and La Nation, because the Rockland Fire Service manages the Nation Fire Department.
Okay.
So that was part of their agreement to purchase the vehicles.
Okay, and does Nation, just from curiosity, are they part of the decision-making process on capital projects when it comes to the fire? Do you know that?
I can't answer that question.
Just fair enough.
I would assume, but I wouldn't want them to do that.
Okay. That's
Because
it for me.
Sorry, Your Worship, it's because the vehicle is still owned by La Nation, so I'm assuming they would be making that. It's not a Rockland vehicle,
Okay.
so.
Okay, fair enough. So they're likely implicated, but regardless, there was a request by Rockland. They went out to tender, and Battle Shield won the contract, and we're receiving the 2024 price on that.
That's right. Rockland Fire Department, or Clarence Rockland Fire Department confirmed that to me late last week. that they went through bids and tenders on
Okay.
that, which is where we would go also for the same process.
Excellent, thank you. Open up the floor to members of council. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I was just wondering, has any of these other manufacturers in Ontario and Quebec been approached to see if they have any stock vehicles?
Yeah, so there are stock vehicles. So this is not a stock vehicle. This is a stock chassis, but the whole truck components still have to be built. And then it gets custom built for our requirements because of different sizes of compartments to make our equipment that we have existing to fit. There are stock vehicles that you can purchase, however, may not exactly meet our needs. Then we would have to still make changes to the contract or that stock vehicle that's in production.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Councillor Lauren?
So would this be considered a brand-new vehicle, therefore a 2025 vehicle, which would then mean we have a 25 to 30-year lifespan from the date of receipt of that vehicle?
Chief?
That's correct, Your Worship, Councillor Lorraine. So the vehicle is going to be a 2025 chassis. Because the manufacturers order chassis, I've contacted a few other manufacturers, they don't have chassis on order at this point. And if they are, they're already committed. So Battle Shield had 2 stock chassis on order that are coming, that are going to be built in the next month and then delivered for June. One of them is already committed, and there's still one available for us at this present time. So the chassis will be built as a 2025 coming out of the U.S. With the tariffs, they were saying that the chassis after the chassis after May 2nd are subject to a $3,500 U.S. Tariff. And it's not a Canada counter tariff or a U.S. tariff on the chassis. It's all the components to make the chassis that the manufacturer is putting on and estimating that it's going to cost them that additional to make the chassis in order to send it. And after July 3rd, I think it is, or 4th, they have no idea what that cost is going to be at this time.
Thank you, Chief.
So they're holding that price until
So that's perfect. So because now you have a combined vehicle and the 2 vehicles based on the report have different lifespans, what will be the lifespan, the normal lifespan of this vehicle?
Chief?
Yes, Your Worship, Councillor Lorraine, sorry about that, I did not answer that question. So after 20 years, that vehicle will then become a second-line vehicle. There's a table in one of the handouts explaining the years of the vehicle. So at 20 years, it'll fall second in line, no longer as a primary truck, and then we can keep it for another 10 years to get us to the 30 years for the pumper portion. If it's just a rescue vehicle today on its own, it's still, we put them at the 30-year mark, 25 to 30 mark, depending on any major repairs after that 25-year mark, what the chassis are looking at. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Or Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, thank you. Just so then to clarify on the 2 trucks that we have, which will be replaced with just the 1 truck. One of the 2 trucks is a 1995, that's 30 years old. The other is a 1999, that makes it 26 years old. So the useful life, or whatever, however it's referred to, life expectancy on both of those, the 95 and the 99, I'd just like to know what it was and whether, if it was extended from its limit, whether we had to face additional insurance charges for that purpose.
Chief?
Your Worship, Councillor Lalonde, great question. So what happens is we get evaluated by an organization called Fire Underwriters Survey as a corporation or as a municipality on the fire protection service that we provide to the community. That rating is based on our vehicles, the age of our vehicles, the condition of our vehicles, and if we're maintaining them, and our firefighters, our training. There's a whole bunch of different calculations involved in that. At the 20-year mark, that's where fire underwriters say that at 20 years, your truck has to come to a second line for the size of our population or for our community. So then at that 20-year, you come second line, and that affects the rating of the taxpayers' insurance. That's the insurance companies use this fire underwriter rating that we have that affects the insurance of the homeowners and commercial insurances. So with those ratings, as long as we're staying within this table of a frontline fire truck, pumper truck within the 20 years, we are keeping our rating at the highest rating possible for our size of fire service for our community. And then when you get it, they let us go to the 25-year mark, and then after 25 years, we no longer have that rating for that front line. So for example, our aerial ladder that in the table that I gave you has to be projected to be replaced in 28. They gave us a 5-year extension for the aerial ladder for that 20-year requirement. So we can ask for extensions, and in the table, when you see it for the second line fire truck, 30 years, we no longer get a rating for it. So it doesn't apply to our rating.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions?
So just to clarify then, so the one that's 30 years old now is at its limit in terms of coverage and,
Yes, Your Worship. So if we, to follow that rating, we're at the end of that 30-year mark. If we still want to, because the council's last, with the fire master plan was to follow the fire rating. So that's what we're trying to maintain and keep it at that rating.
Merci. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, sorry, just one last comment. So as probably mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of the sole source contracts, never have been. Understand that in times we do it for very extenuating circumstances, and I think you've expressed some extenuating circumstances with the 2024 RFP from Rockland La Nation, the fact that there is the tariff uncertainty, and just the build in the U.S. of these chassis, right? You got 2 on order now, not coming in till July. Who knows when the next order could be put in and when that would be delivered? So I think with the life expectancy of the vehicles having pretty much exceeded their lifespan, I will reluctantly vote in favor of it, of the sole source, not the fact that of the actual vehicle, because I think the vehicle is required. Yeah, I think with the information that's been provided in the report, I think there's enough there for me anyway, to say yes to today. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, one final question, and it concerns the remaining vehicles. Are we having any difficulty in maintaining those vehicles? And I'm thinking about spare parts, et cetera, on some of these vehicles that are 20 years more old. If you had an automobile and it's 20 years old, finding parts for it becomes difficult. Are we running into any such problems like this? And that when they're repaired, are they off the road, out of the fire hall for an extended period of time?
Chief?
Your Worship, Councillor Armstrong. This is fake wood, but I'm going to knock on wood. Things are going okay right now. However, the manufacturers are telling us that, yes, you are getting close to your 30-year marks. Parts may start getting slim depending on what it is. Trucks, the current fleet that we've had, some of them have been out for maybe more than a month to get fixed. Last year we had some major repairs to get done on a couple of the vehicles. However, so far we've been pretty good. So I'm just crossing my fingers that there's no major repairs.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments? A couple of the last comments based on conversations we've had now. So the residual value on the 2 vehicles that will be, they'll just go down the line, or they're getting taken out completely?
Yeah, so we would be removing them from our fire service. Either gov deals to try to sell them to another fire service potentially, who may, not all, like really small municipalities don't follow that fire underwriter survey insurance requirement. So they may take a 30-year-old truck and use it because they may be replacing a 40-year-old truck, believe it or not, or a 50-year-old truck in these smaller communities. I have no idea what we would get for them. I'm hoping for at least 30,000, but who knows?
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I look forward to hearing how that works out. And then, so if we go ahead with this, the timeline for delivery?
They're expecting, if we give them the approval tomorrow, we would have a truck before the end of the year, most likely November.
Fantastic. Excellent. Any final thoughts? No? Thank you so much. Thank you to the committee as well for the recommendations. Really appreciate it.
Your Worship. Is it okay if I dismiss my team?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
thank you. All right, moving to 11B, règlement pour l'affectation d'une voie publique PD 2025-21, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport PD 2025-21 daté du 14 avril 2025 et adopte le règlement dédiant le bloc 19, plan 50M 262 comme partie d'une voie publique étant la rue La Chaîne à Embrun et que le règlement soit enregistré sous titre. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Non, merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Merci. Any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, thank you. Item C. Règlement sur le programme des déchets rapport ISPW 2025-05. The council receives report ISPW 2025-05 dated April 14th, 2025 and approve the proposed bylaw for waste management activities in the first, second, and final reading. The proposed bylaw to amend the Schedule A6 of the user fees and charges bylaw 2024-097. 3, to start the automated solid waste collection for the week of November 3rd, 2025. And 4, that solid waste collection become biweekly as of March 2nd, 2026. Questions and comments, anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. So the main purpose of this report is, one, to add or to update our user fee bylaw to reflect the new purchase of bins, and also to amend or to update our waste program bylaw. So now the recycling is no longer a responsibility of the municipality. So everything in our bylaw that reflects the recycling program needs to be removed and replaced by the organic program. So that's the main goal here of this report.
All right, thank you. So before I pass it on, just a couple of comments. So the solid waste pickup is a change. It would start earlier, correct? But there is no impact on the costs associated with it, correct?
Exactly. So we, since it's going to be delivered by township staff to save some costs, it will be delivered in early fall. So with resident having the bin in hand, we recommend the council to start using it at that time instead of waiting of January 1st.
Excellent. And that moving that up does not add any cost and does not change the service level for the weekly pickup period until that changes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And just to add, the cost to purchase those garbage bin needs to occur in 2025.
Okay. And so that is the $23 that we're discussing.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
so we are benefiting from funds that were still on reserve.
Yeah, exactly.
And the purchase. So any new resident coming in after we start the program will be paying just as they're doing with the green bins now, correct?
That's correct, and that's one of the changes in the user fee, to have that one-time charge for
Okay.
any new construction or new resident
Okay.
living in the municipality.
So the service, again, no changes in terms of service or anything else. And then in terms of garbage collection, if we look at it, so 2025, if I combine the waste, the organic collection is roughly $5.04 per week per resident or per residence. And it goes up to $5.98 for 2026. But the reason it goes up is that we'll have a full year of organic on the price, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so that's $5.98 per week. And that's a price that we have guaranteed right now until 2031 outside of COLA adjustments, correct?
That's correct.
So that's for all the municipality, $5.98 per week. And we agree that solid waste will move to once every 2 weeks in 2020.
26 if approved by council.
That's correct. So that'll still have to go. So if it would not get approved by council, let's say, then prices would have to get adjusted accordingly. Correct?
It will be reviewed to be presented to council, but yeah.
Okay, so just on a couple of notes on that, a couple of other comments. So there were some comments online around that, and I just have to say, in doing a little bit of research, Ottawa's been doing this since 2010. in terms of the frequency of the pickup of the solid waste, and having now gone through a week myself, going through where we put the organics and versus solid waste, I can see the requirement of having the weekly for solid. I mean, it makes sense. And on the organic side as well, I know I had read some comments around, in the summer and the smell and so on, but those are going to be picked up weekly, and you can get bags just like you used to get bags to put into that green bin. So we have compostable bags that we picked up at Amazon at a reasonable price, and so the system works really well. So really happy to see that move forward. Questions and comments, members of council. Councillor Deakin.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by extending my congratulations to the administration on the launch of the organics program. Last Monday, I believe, was the first day, and I wanted to share a positive comment that I heard from young families saying that the Green Bin program is helping them to save money by reducing their need for stickers on a weekly basis. So there were families that were going above the regular waste pickup, but now that they're able to use the green bin, they're not needing to put those $2 stickers on their bags. So it was really great to see that some families are already identifying this as a very positive thing and seeing savings, especially those young families who are on tight budgets. I'm also very glad to see in this report that the annual yard waste pickup is continuing once a year in the fall. I know that I had seen some misinformation online about that being canceled, and so I'm really glad to see that that is indeed continuing as per this report. And in terms of, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for mentioning the City of Ottawa, because as someone who lived in the City of Ottawa not too long ago, and is familiar with that program, one of the concerns that I did have about going to the weekly pickup, and I believe it's still an unknown at this time, is the special considerations pickup that the City of Ottawa does for families who have diapers, incontinence products, and home health care waste on a weekly basis, that they would still have their waste picked up weekly on the alternating weeks in the City of Ottawa. So when it comes to the recommendations before us, recommendation 1, 2, 3, I'm in full support of. But on the solid waste collection becoming biweekly, I just feel that there's not quite enough information on that one, and I would prefer to go the route of the other option provided by administration in the report, where we review this again when more information is available.
I'm sorry, so Councillor Deakin, you're asking to remove this item?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So any other comments? We all have some time to comment as we remove it, but might as well keep going. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I've been getting lots of questions and comments from people, even as I'm walking my dog, on the green bin and other components of the system. The report says no communications plan. I think we really need a big communications plan to explain all of this to the general public and what the cost is and how much it's going to cost them. Just one good publication would probably remove many questions, and I'm sure other members of council will also be getting these questions soon if they haven't already.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I think we had talked about the communication and clarifying communication. I know that was discussed with staff, so maybe there is more that could be done in terms of, because I know that the website was completely updated with the newest information, and so maybe we can do more around that. Monsieur Bourgon, thoughts on that?
Well, I apologize for not including it. On our end, we assume like we're already in the middle of a full communication campaign for the organic program. We're adjusting our Q&A as we're receiving what type of question. So it's in that sense that it's not marked on the report, but we are really in the middle.
Updating it on a regular basis every time there's comments.
Updating our post, touching base with the service provider as well. what they see, how, like, should we push more of like the orientation of the bin, stuff, those type of details. So we're already in the middle of our communication plan.
Is it fair to say that, that we are looking on socials as well and tracking if there is misinformation to make sure that we update that, our Q&A on that?
I think our communication officer does look into other groups. I personally don't.
Fair enough.
I think our communication
Yes,
officer
I believe so. Anything to add on that, Monsieur Godin or Monsieur Dagenet?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So, like Monsieur Bourgon said, our communications officer does monitor a lot of social media activity, and when required, we do. When we identify that there's maybe misinformation or a lack of clarity on a certain topic, we can update our webpage or post some communications accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Lauren?
A few questions. So first one is just clarification on the additional $23 fee. So are all current residents going to be charged in 2025 on, I guess, their next tax bill, an additional $23? Is that the understanding?
Monsieur Bourgon?
So yes, that's what we're proposing to council. We're using the balance of our, that was put aside for the green bins.
The 300,000.
So we're applying the balance on the garbage bins, so there's that balance to be paid off. And yes, we're recommending to council to add it to the August tax bill as a one-time for the existing residents.
Okay. Now, under the following changes are proposed, it says increase to the existing waste management user fee to offset bin purchase cost. We need to make sure that that is for a one-time change, not a permanent $23 extra per year, because we know how sometimes that happens where it doesn't get removed.
Monsieur Bourgon?
Good point. And yes, in the user fee bylaw, it's really identified like the 23
Yes.
being like a one-time for resident as of April 15
Okay.
of this
So
year.
only for 2025.
Yes.
So it's clear in the bylaw is what you're saying, Monsieur Bourgon?
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Next one is, you touched on it a little bit, but not really, is by going from going from weekly solid to biweekly solid. What is the actual savings that we're getting from the contract? Because when we originally did the contract, it was for weekly collection.
Monsieur Bourgon?
So the changes, it's really minimal since the truck or the vehicle still need to drive all the routes.
So going from weekly to biweekly, there's really no cost savings.
Yeah, in terms
Well-
of the user fee, it's there's no significant cost.
So
It's
if I
gonna be-
may, if I look at the waste depot, which is the, where we bring the waste, it's going from 2024, it was $51 to $31.
Yes, the waste depot,
Yeah.
because we're reducing the amount of waste being picked up since you're maximizing the quantities in your organic program.
So that has nothing to do with the frequency of the pickup?
No, exactly.
Okay.
That was the vehicle or the truck still needs to make all those stops anyway. So when we did the presentation last fall, the difference of like your weekly bi-weekly in terms of the user fee doesn't have an impact. It's really to push and promote your organic program.
So no savings to the resident for this program?
No,
Okay.
not significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other offsetting benefits to going to biweekly from weekly?
Our main goal here is to reduce waste, divert as much as possible, so to promote and maximize the organic program.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions or comments? This item will be removed so we can have additional discussions. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, just one last thing. A tag for additional curbside collection of $2. How will an extra bag be collected if everything is done automatically by a machine?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So the tag system would be removed from our program. So they would have only the quantities of your bin.
Within the bin, so there are no options.
So the tag program or like the extra waste, yeah. So basically, right now, just with the volume of the bins, we are, like, the result is increasing.
It's
the
an increased
capacity of,
capacity on a weekly. Okay. Follow up, Councillor Armstrong?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this side? Okay, so we are going to remove item C, Madame Camara-Laflamme, and we'll address that separately. Okay, moving to item D, adaptation du prix des compteurs d'eau, rapport ISWAT 2025-02, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport ISWAT 2025-02 daté du 14 avril 2025 et approuve la modification à l'annexe A10-1 compteur d'eau du règlement des droits de redevance 2024-097. Anything to add on this, Monsieur Bourgon?
Donc, on présente cet ajustement au Conseil suivant un avis qu'on a reçu là, de notre fournisseur de compteurs d'eau. Donc, c'est pour cette raison que-
Ça impacte pas nos résidents en ce moment, c'est juste...
c'est pour les nouvelles constructions.
C'est ça.
Donc,
exactement.
au moment du permis de construction, le constructeur ou le plombier, dans certains cas, c'est le prix qui est chargé à ce moment-là.
Merci. Autre questions ou commentaires des membres du Conseil? Questions, comments? Conseiller Lalonde?
Oui, juste en lien avec ça, moi, je m'ai fait changer mon water meter il y a peut-être 2 ans, je pense qu'ils sont venus. Le lifespan de ça, c'est quoi à peu près? Ce qu'on sait, c'est 5 ans ou 7 ans? Et quand on les change chez les résidents qui en ont déjà, juste me rappeler si c'est le prix pour les changer devient un coût aux résidents.
Monsieur Bourgon?
Ben, il y a je pense qu'il y a plusieurs variables dans votre question. Quelques années passées, on a changé vraiment juste une section du compteur. On n'a pas changé le compteur à son entier. Donc, à ce moment-là, c'était sur la garantie du produit. Donc, il n'y a pas eu de coût supplémentaire aux résidents. Donc, cette partie-là, ça a une garantie de 20 ans. Puis, c'est une garantie similaire pour le compteur en son entier. C'est que ça dépendrait des circonstances. Qu'est-ce que c'est aux résidents ou ça fait partie d'un programme de remplacement qu'on met en place pour changer le compteur. Mais là, ce serait plus au niveau des frais d'usager là, qui absorberaient le coût.
C'est bon? OK. Merci. Autres commentaires? Other comments? Non? OK, on s'en va au item E. La Nation Mutual Aid Agreement, Report ISWATWW 2025-02A. That Council receives Report ISWATWW 2025-02A dated April 14th, 2025, and authorize the Mayor and Clerk to sign the Mutual Aid Agreement with the Nation Municipality for Water and Wastewater Systems. And so I believe this issue is coming back with some changes relating, or some additional or changes relating to liability clauses based on questions that were brought up at the last meeting. Anything to add to that, Mr. Bourgon?
Mr. Mayor, so we highlighted in yellow in the report all the changes that were made since March 10th. And also, so we updated the agreement and also created the specific bylaw. So it's really distinct of the agreement and the bylaw itself.
Excellent. Questions, comments, members of council? Seeing none, thank you. Item F, Water and Sewer Annual Reports, 2024 Report ISWAT, and that council receives report ISWATWW 2025-03 dated April 14th, 2025, and acknowledge receipt of the Water and Sanitary Sewer Operations Compliant Report 2024. So this is part of a regular report we get every year. That comes to council, so it shows me, certainly if I look at it, that we're proactive in terms of managing the system and ensuring clean, safe water delivery for our residents. Anything to add on that, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Matt. Well, to add quickly on the drinking water system, we received the ministry conducted a full evaluation of our system a few months ago, and we received the report on the inspection showed that there's absolutely nothing wrong, and we had received an excellent note. So no improvement or nothing to non-compliant during the, so all that to say that, like, I think our team deserve a good shout out as well for all the work that they're doing in our
Excellent.
system. And from past conversation from council for our wastewater discharge, we did had some non-compliant for the concentration of ammonia. And that's what really we highlighted in our staff report. But also we need to keep in mind that the overall mass were below the target imposed by the province. So I think that's it's important to see that, like, yes, concentration throughout the discharge was over the limit at some extent that you can see in the report, but also that the overall mass is below the threshold. And another good point too to see has the overall that we do a test with fish, and they all survived after that test. I think that's another note to highlight, that we're not, like, that we are monitoring the water that's being discharged in the river.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I read through the water and the wastewater report. Our water report's just fine, yes. I have questions concerning the ECA limits on ammonia concentration. We've actually been exceeding the concentration limits since the fall of 2020 consistently. And the mass, the total mass of ammonia, in fact, has been increasing slowly over the years. But my question then becomes, if we're exceeding, aren't we saying that the actual reserve capacity on our wastewater system right at the moment, in terms of additional construction that could be on it, is in fact negative, a negative number, because we're exceeding our environmental approvals? And should we be looking at restricting construction because we are in fact exceeding the environmental approvals, until we have some sort of a solution built that will reduce those levels within the limits of our approvals?
Thank you, Monsieur Bourgon.
So in the operation, we, over the last few years, we did better desludging. So that's a positive thing too. We've seen that by doing so, it helps our operation. There's improvement in aeration. So there's operation modification or improvement to be done in order to keep on working the way, or not slowing down or stopping the development. That being said, as highlighted in our master plan, we need to start the planification of our upgrades now. And I'll bring back like another report to council to kind of give the steps of the capital investment coming, like the conclusion of our master plan. But all the little changes, the modification that we're doing to the operation helped a lot. And the master plan doesn't really call for a short-term major investment, but that, again, that being said, we need to start planning for the future expansion or future improvements.
Merci, Monsieur Bourgon. In terms of the question that Councillor Armstrong, I'll get to you in a sec, that question that Councillor Armstrong asked about the increasing levels of ammonia. We're within the requirements, but they are increasing. And so what you're telling us, if I understand correctly, is that through operational tweaks, we're able to reduce it, but Councillor Armstrong is saying that they're still increasing. Is that increase related to our growth, which would kind of make sense that the more people we have, the more those aspects are impacted? And so I just want to make sure that Council understands, really, are we in an area that we're not able to sustain that growth or not?
At this time, we, like at staff level, we believe that we can still accommodate the growth. but again, with some investment operationally. As an example, again, the desludging and fixing, improving our aeration system. Those are little, well, things that we're doing and still need to be done in order to maintain the quality of water, or even improving at some level.
Thank you, Councillor Lauren.
So along the same lines that I asked earlier, is this something that would form a significant portion of our development charge discussion as well, to ensure that growth is paying for growth in that circumstance, and maintain a level of ability to continue to grow down the road?
Mr. Bourgon?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So yes, exactly. So the master plan being completed, it's going to be the main tool to be used in our development charge study that we're doing this year.
Okay. Councillor Deakin?
Thank you. I just wanted to add into the conversation the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, who would be running these regulations and I assume driving some of these questions and answers that we're looking for in terms of this big idea of stopping development. So I just want to understand, what exactly are the next steps with MECP? I read in the report that they've been notified, just so that we're aware of how that regulation happens and what next steps are that we would expect back from them to be guiding things like the next steps with the master plan.
Mr. Bourgon?
I just feel like that's a bit missing from the conversation, that we're not just making decisions on our own here. We are responsive to the province's regulations.
Mr. Bourgon?
So to the ministry, well, we need to report every exceedance, as well as what I'm telling council tonight of things that we've done over the last year in terms of our operation that was also related to the ministry. We haven't heard anything back. Now that master plan's completed, when we start the planification of our expansion, the ministry will be one of the key players in that pre-consultation and leading to the improvements.
Councillor Deakin, follow up?
It does concern me, because I've seen this happen a few different times with applications, as no news isn't necessarily good news. So I would just like to understand if that's common practice, that not hearing back from MECP does in fact indicate that there isn't a lot of concern, or are there other factors at play that are prohibiting MECP to get back in a timely manner with our next steps?
Mr. Bourgon?
What I can say, it's not the only file that we provide all the info to MECP and we don't hear back. The times that we heard back on different other files, well, there was something to address. So I don't know if that's reassuring, but.
Okay, so perhaps I think what Councillor Deakin's asking in this particular instance, is there a way to get a stamp from them, some sort of stamp?
We can definitely inquire again.
Okay. I think that certainly would put council more at ease in terms of knowing that we're within those requirements. But I'm assuming that this report is done by professionals in the field and that
is also submitted, like the annual report needs to be submitted to
yeah. So there are many eyes on it with reviews and so on, and normally, if there are no issues, I would assume that they don't come back to us. So I have a couple of hands that were raised. Councillor Lauren, I believe.
Just on that note, can that be a follow-up for business arising, either at the next meeting or the meeting after, depending on when we hear back, if we hear back from them?
Yeah, I think that's a fair request. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, just the other thing, in that we've just talked about ammonia, but I've noted that our total suspended solids has now reached 98% of the limit. So I was also questioning if we're looking at reducing the TSS in the plan. As I say, 98% of the limit, following the trend. We're about to go over, and that would be a second exceedance in a parameter.
So as a follow-up as well, if that is an area of concern, and what kind of timelines evolved? If a 2% takes 10 years to increase, or, you know, I'm no expert, so I don't have any idea. So if we can get a little bit of added peace of mind through that kind of information, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Thank you, everyone, for your feedback. That's great discussion. All right, moving to item G, mise à jour du complexe récréatif, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport d'information PR 2025-04 daté du 14 avril 2025. So this is our quarterly update that Council has requested. So I was very happy to see this, and a couple of points I wanted to make about the report that I found particularly good. First of all, is the live cost tracker that's being shared with staff, and I think that's good. That's a live document, so if there are any alarms or anything like that when you see that, I think that's good for us. And I really particularly like the risk register tracking, which also gives me a bit of peace of mind, or a better understanding of where we need, if there are areas that we need to kind of prepare for and plan. So anything to add on that, Monsieur Dagenet? No, Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin.
Merci, M. Maire. Ça serait plutôt Mme Guittard.
Madame Guittard, mon Dieu.
The only one.
Ben, c'est Monsieur Dagenet qui me regardait directement dans les yeux. Excusez-moi, Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So like Mr. Mayor mentioned, this was a direction from council back in February that we submit a quarterly report. So this is the first one until the completion. So we made sure to mention that we went back to June 2024 up to March 2025. As we go, the subsequent reports will be only for a period of 3 months, so just to clarify that. So there might have been more steps in this one, because obviously the period was longer to cover. So we thought it was important to report the achievements that were done in the last month, and then to also track the timelines, that updating what's coming up in the next few months, in the next 3 months, in fact, until the end of June. This will be the time for the next report. So like Mr. Mayor also mentioned, we will include the risk register in every quarterly report with the financial update also, and also the scheduling from the general contractor. So like in the risk register, we were pleased to see that out of the 69 risks, we already have 34 that are closed, so that's a good thing. We have 27 remaining, which are low risk, 4 medium risk, and there's only 4 high risk. Obviously, there are risks. We can't guarantee that they will happen or not, or will they increase in the risk level. That also we can't guarantee that. But it's nice to have that to know about this. So I'm not sure, and also we thought it was interesting to include some photography.
Of course.
So that was, it's more visual, because obviously the general public cannot go and walk the site. So at least it gives everybody an idea of what's going on the construction site. So I'm not sure if you had any questions.
Sure. One last comment. As you were talking about it, I was thinking maybe we should have also included communications we've had with the ministry after the election in terms of getting an update on the grant and so on. I think we should do that. We're going to be running another set of letters, but we communicated with all the departments that are loosely connected to helping us get the grant, including writing to Premier Ford in terms of reminding him and the party that our grant's out there, and that we're eager to find out what's happening, and also inviting all the ministries to come for a site visit and so on. So that was done and is going to get redone again in terms of a follow-up. Madame Guittard, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So hopefully by June 30th, we will have some good news to announce in our next quarterly report, because we are hoping to get answers from our 2 major grant applications we did back in October 2024.
Excellent, merci beaucoup. Okay, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Deakin.
Yeah, just one, I'm pleased to see that we're on schedule. That's always a big thing. And I've looked through the risks, and I've noticed that essentially the 4 high-risk items are items that we have no control over, and they will always be high risk. Yeah, so what can I say?
That's
That's
a
just the
fair
way
statement.
such projects work.
Absolutely, and it's early in it, and so we're still on budget, on time, but that's where we want to know if, the timeline as well is so important. Councillor Deakin.
Very similar comment, noting that those 4 high-risk areas were not only out of our control, but seemed to be a fairly common risk that would be associated with any project of this nature, of this size. I didn't see anything in there that reflected specifically on this project and this context that we're in here in Russell Township.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Councillor Lalonde.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I agree with those points. And I just want to thank staff, everyone, Madame Guital, for the reports that we're getting that we asked for, and the risk analysis that was done on tariffs in that situation. I was asking questions today on the change order report of earlier, and where there's actually some savings to be had in the change orders, you actually see items in parentheses where those costs have disappeared. And it was explained to me that, we have people on the job looking at that, so that where there are opportunities for savings to remove those items, they're removed. So I just want to say, I think it's been an excellent service to council and the community that we get all the reports that we asked for here. There's plenty to go around. And just a shout out to staff. This has been very well managed and reported on to council. I'm pleased to get all this information.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Any final thoughts on this? No? Thank you. All right, so we're moving to item H, Community Grants and Contributions, Report PR 2025-05. That council received report PR 2025 dated April 14th, 2025, and declined the ad hoc grant request from CJRO radio station and approved to fund the demand from the council budget from special events budget line for $3,000, and declined the ad hoc grant request from the Russell Soccer Club for the $1,500, and approved the in-kind request for the use of the hall for $99. So before we pass it on for questions and comments, there was also in the consent items a report on the status of our grant money and so on. Can you just clarify in terms of the Russell Soccer Club? They do some amazing stuff here in our community, and so I would just like to understand just the rationale for declining it, because on the surface they appear to deserve such a grant. So I just wanted to clarify if there is for the rationale.
Thank you,
Madame
Mr. Mayor,
Guital.
members of council. I think it was a really financial decision that the administration felt that they had to take. After reviewing the budget for a few times with the Russell Soccer Club, and then reviewing their financial statements, we felt that the club is in a very good financial situation. We've approved some grants in the last year. In 2023, we did approve a grant of $1,250 because they had at that time made a major loss with the food in their freezer because of COVID, and so council had approved to grant them some cash money to be able to recoup some of those losses. And then last year again, we did approve another $1,400 grant, cash grant, to help them with that special day. And also because we had requested the financial statements at that time, and the soccer club were not able to provide those statements. This year, we did ask for the statements, which we did, because every request, grant request over $1,000, we can request the financial statements. So I did say in my report that we felt that a cash balance of $192,000, plus another substantial amount in the cash account, we felt that they could probably be able to pay the $1,500 that they were requesting. There were also some donations, amounts that were taken out along the way in the process, but they could not guarantee the amounts. So we took them out from the budget, but obviously they're still waiting for some more donations.
Okay,
So that is the main reason. It's really a financial reason.
okay. So, yeah, so it has nothing to do with the value of this group. It's a
Absolutely not.
fantastic
No.
group, and I mean, so I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate that. The other thing, if I just go back, and I'll give you the floor in a second, if I just go back in terms of our in-kind donations that we do, and then the cash value donations, I think our annual budget is $30,000 or $35,000 that's set aside for the dollar donations that we give.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In the money, we have 30,000.
30,000. So it's a limited amount of money, and so staff is doing due diligence in terms of protecting that amount to organizations that demonstrate that need. And so so again, it has no bearing on the value or quality of the organization.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to also add in the financial statements, there was a mention of $113,000 of net profit, of excess of revenues over expenses
Yeah.
last year. So, that all fell through the balance
Well,
for the decision.
And that's fair. And again, I do believe that the Russell Soccer Club, if I understand correctly, and having had some discussions with them, is that they're putting money aside to grow fields and stuff like that, to increase their capacity. And so I'm not going to judge on the value of why that's for, but certainly I just want to I wanted to kind of get a good understanding on why the recommendation was. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Councillor Deakin.
Yeah, on the first part, the first bullet there regarding the CJRO radio station, this has come a couple of times now, and I think it's important that we support this tonight. And I also would like in the future to see, if a request is coming again, a request that would fit with the community grants program. I had here, not that I want to be the idea fairy, but something like our youth radio program could be something that comes for support from the local government to our local community radio. Helps to cover those operational expenses that the radio station may have, and helps the local community understand the value of that investment. The way I read it now, it's telling me that there are some sustainability issues or some sort of financial hardship that the radio has come across, and definitely want to be there for them and for local organizations in a sense when they come. But seeing this twice now, it has me concerned about the longer term requests that may continue to come from CJRO. So just leaving that there. On the soccer club request, I think you put it really well, Mr. Mayor, about the value that the soccer club brings to our community, and that understanding that this recommendation coming from the administration tonight doesn't debate that in any way, shape, or form. The soccer club is growing. It does incredible things in our community and engages many, many people in our community in sport and active lifestyle. My concern with the recommendation here, and why I'd like to pull it, is that I'm not quite seeing consistency in terms of the financial justification. My understanding is that when folks apply for these grants. Some of them have financial statements in hand, some of them don't. Some of them are nonprofits, some of them aren't. I'm sure some of them that do come with financial statements in hand have money in the bank. And I'm not seeing in the program any sort of definition around how much money in the bank is too much money in the bank to be considered for support. For all intents and purposes, when I read through the eligibility and ineligibility of the program, the soccer club's application to me fit very well. And so I will be asking to pull this, and I will be supporting that this council provide that $1,500 request.
Councillor Lauren.
Yeah, not, on top of pulling it, I'd like to actually separate the two items from the request. So the first item, I'll talk about the first item first. So essentially, CJRO radio station is asking us to, again, to provide the operational cost funding for them. I mean, at what point are we then taking over the operations of this radio station if they're continuing to come to us year after year after year for operational costs? So I have a concern there. Is that something that is under our purview that we then take over this? Because that's where it's going. So that's the first piece. I'm still leery on whether or not I'm going to vote in favor of the $3,000 coming out of the special events budget for a second time in a row. I know we've done in the past where we've said for the first year we'll give something, but then the second year we won't under the community grants. And I understand this is under a different program, and maybe this has to come back as a budgetary item, a separate budgetary item going forward, if that's something that council is keen on supporting. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is I do agree with Councillor Deakin on the fact of the criteria for the soccer club to get funding under our community grants program, under the ad hoc grant amount. And I equate it to when we ask for grants for things like, I'll just use the rec complex as an example, but we have a good funding program in place. Do we get penalized at the provincial level because we have a financial plan in place and we've been good with our finances? Does that tell us, should that then disqualify us from these programs? And I don't think it should. Things like road projects or bridge projects and all that stuff where, we may not have qualified for certain programs or grants in the past because they're going to help. There's a limited amount of money, and they're going to help the groups that didn't plan properly for it, or municipalities that didn't do the right things. Just because the soccer club may have done everything right shouldn't preclude them from being able to access the grant program, in my opinion. I don't know the answer to this, is whether or not the money in their accounts, we say cash reserves or whatnot, but are they actually reserving funds for a special project like a field, another one of their fields like they have now? Is that part of that $190,000 that's in the bank, or 113, whatever that number is that part of that amount that's sitting there that they've shown us, because it is a special reserve for that next project? So for me, I would support the $1,500 to the soccer club, which I will support. I'll support the $99 for the in-kind. And I'd like to separate out the first item as well. I'm going to take the next little while to think about that one, because I don't know what we need, what the answer is. I don't know, Mr. Godin, if you have a thought on that, on what we do if we continuously get this request year after year after year going forward.
Mr. Godin.
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. Not really. I mean, our thought on the administration side is basically it doesn't fit into the community grants program, which is why we're recommending to separate it from that. The reasoning to recommend to approve it through the special events budget line was just based on our listening of the budget meetings that occurred last time we approved that back in, for the 2024 budget, which council seemed to be on the same page as far as financing that. I do agree with you as far as questioning, should we be doing it? And I wouldn't want to, I don't have a particular opinion on that question itself. I prefer to leave that to the politicians.
Merci, merci. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Deacon's comments, and I would like to see the soccer club get their grant. The question I'm wondering about is, we have already pre-approved and the monthly approved grants, and we're down to about 4,700 in the in-kind and 5,900 in the monetary grants. How is that following last year's and previous year's expenditures overall? Can we expect to see other demands coming in the next little while? Are we following our normal expenditures?
So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Guitton, but in the consent items, we did have a community grants report that kind of demonstrates previous years as well. And so when I look at that, I typically see, you know, what the trend is at this time of the year, because they're always year to date on those amounts. That does not preclude organizations coming up with something, or a new organization or so on. And so so that's the rationale about that. The couple of points that that I just wanted to add. So we talked about cash reserves, but one of the comments that Madame Guitton made is that there was net income of $110,000 in the financials. And so I just wanted to highlight that part of the reason for the recommendation that was provided by staff is that there was a substantial net income, albeit probably required for their reserves for the growth. And that's one thing, but I just wanted to clarify that because that when I see an organization with a bottom line, it does kind of make sense to, with the limited funds that we have, to kind of try to optimize, you know, for the organizations that are truly in need. And again, not saying anything about this organization not needing it or so on, but I just want to clarify that. So this item will be pulled. Any last comments on this? It will be pulled and it will be separated in half, and I'm not even sure how we're going to do that, Councillor Lauren, but I'm sure we'll figure that out as we go. But that's duly noted. All right. Thank you very much. All right, moving to item I, nomination d'un inspecteur en bâtiment, rapport BLDG 2025-01, that council receives report BLD 2025-01 dated April 14th, 2025, and approve the appointment of Gregory Fittler as building inspector. Anything to add, Chief, on that?
Your Worship and members of council, this is just a requirement under the Building Code Act that council has to appoint municipal building inspectors. So we had a vacancy recently, and we've recently hired Greg Fittler to fill that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, there's just one comment in the report. It says, which is why the department is endeavoring to help train and help qualify a new building official. Do we take people on and finish their qualifications so that they get whatever provincial certification or whatever is required? Or do we normally have people that come in with all qualifications required when we hire them?
Councillor Armstrong, clarification, are you asking specifically for this position or for just a practice for Township, just a clarification?
That's Township practice, not this position.
Yeah, sure. So maybe Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet.
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So we do invest in training for our different employees. Depending on a position, different qualifications are required. I don't know if Chief McBain wants to add to this, because on the building side specifically, we have different levels of building inspectors depending on how qualified they are. But we do provide the opportunity to grow into those more senior positions inside.
Chief McBain, anything to add?
Yeah, Your Worship and members of council. So yeah, the qualifications are legislated by the province for the building officials, so they have different levels of certification. We obviously strive to hire individuals who are fully qualified. For this particular person, he is not fully qualified, so we will invest to get him to that fully qualified position. level.
Given your answer there, is it fair to assume that, like, the requirement was for a fully qualified? Is that what you're saying? And then we selected a person that's not fully qualified?
That's correct. So he doesn't have, there's the different levels of qualification.
Oh, I see, okay.
So he's at the bottom level of
Okay.
qualification.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Any other comments on this? No? Thank you, council. All right, moving to item J, review of the structure of council committees, report CSASCL 2025-02. That council receive report CSASCL 2025 dated April 14th for information purposes. Madame Camille-Laflamme, anything to add?
Hello, Mr. Mayor, council members. So I can just give a brief summary. So it's brought to council for information purposes, and that's the result of the council strategic discussion held in August of last year. And it was to see the committee structures and what we have so far and what we could do. So in the third schedule attached to the report, we provide the list of the committees we presently have and the ones in the neighboring municipalities, just to compare. And in the last schedule, we also highlighted the time spent by council staff to prepare agendas, minutes, and other stats that can go on the recommendations, the subjects, the absences of the people, the vacancies, and the accomplishments from the committee meetings of all committee meetings of council in 2024. And the next steps and recommendations are that this year, all committees take the time to review and update their terms of reference, objectives, and mandates. And also, before making any structural changes to the committees, it would be best to wait for the recommendations from the public engagement study, which will be finalized this summer.
Okay, so on August 26th, we were looking for recommendations around committee structure. And what you're saying in this report, and there's amazing information in here, all gathered centrally, is that at this point, until we finish the public engagement or the engagement policy process, that we hold off on making any structural changes at this time. And once we're done the engagement piece, we'll come back and complete this particular review. Does that make sense?
Yes, and council could advise after the engagement study to say exactly how they want to proceed as well. If you want a further report or what they want. to
Any
be brought
actions
back,
resulting
yeah.
out of that? Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Deakin.
I just want to echo the comment about the amount of information in this report. It's incredibly helpful. And to Madame Camille Laflamme's point, it acknowledges a lot of the time and the resourcing required on the administrative side to run these committees. I also want to acknowledge, of course, the resourcing and the time that those volunteers are putting into the committee work. And many recommendations have come from across the different committees. I wanted to ask about thinking about the implementation of those recommendations, making sure that committee members can see the outcomes of their work and what's come through council and been approved. I would like to see before budget deliberations for the 2026 budget a report on the various recommendations that have come through, their status of implementation, so that council can have a really clear understanding of what's still in the queue, and so that council has a clear understanding at budget time about what sorts of resourcing, if there are any concerns on the resourcing side, to ensure that those recommendations and their implementation do move forward.
Okay, I think that makes sense in terms of understanding, again, the value of the committees coming in. And your comments do bring a thought as well. As I was reading through, it talked about the purpose, and I don't know if it was a comment that came from our August discussion on this, but I wanted to clarify. There was a comment saying that the purpose of these committees was to pass on information to the residents. But I don't necessarily, although that does happen for sure, I think that the value certainly from a counselor's perspective, or as a council here, is the feedback we receive from those residents as well. So it's a great sounding board on ideas and policies that are coming in place. So just wanted to make sure that that's reflected. What Councillor Deakin, and Councillor Deakin, feel free to jump in here. What Councillor Deakin is asking is, from all the recommendations that come through on through our council meetings, it would be interesting to see kind of a summary of that data and what happens with that. And so are we really using that information? Are we, those recommendations that are coming to council? Is that something that's feasible, Madame Camille-Laflamme? And not necessarily now, but what we're talking about, just pre-budget, so that we have an understanding of that. Monsieur Godin, Madame Camille-Laflamme?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. Yeah, I don't think it should be an issue to pull up that information. And to kind of give, like you said, the status report, I think it does really speak to the exercise of how the committees work, to see if it's efficient as far as recommendations received, recommendations approved by council, and the status on if we've implemented those or not yet.
Okay, merci. C'est good. Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councillor Deakin said, or part of it anyway. I mean, someone coming on to council for the last 2 years, the staff that have helped me and worked with me these last 2 years, Sébastien Dagenet, Valerie Galloway, Louis Savoie, Sylvain Boudreau of late, Alexis Ball with the affordable housing, Joanne, Patricia Deschamps. It's great to see the report. The hours that get put in are very substantial. I see it on the faces of the staff for some of these meetings on top of their regular jobs. So I'm very grateful. I think we've done some very meaningful work, well beyond just passing or preparing and passing along information to residents. We more recently had a joint meeting on the Seniors Advisory and the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which showed that there's some real commonality and synergy between those two groups. That was the point of putting all this together, to see whether down the road there might be ways to gain efficiencies through redesign and repurposing of committees. So it's very exciting. The data is very good, and thanks very much to Joanne and her group for putting this together. This is very helpful to me.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I agree with the previous comments as well, but we do have a lot of committees, and it takes a lot of work to support these committees. And as Councillor Lalonde, there are some similarities. We try to put things in silos, but in reality, there's a lot of overlap. We're doing things. But two of the other municipalities, Champlain and Hawkesbury here, have committees of the whole. I'm not advocating a committee of the whole, but it's very hard to compare sometimes when council is doing all the work themselves, because that means that some of these other townships, like Champlain and Hawkesbury, council is doing the work where we would have that done by a committee, or somebody would advise a committee, the council, later on as part of a council meeting, a full council meeting, instead of the committee of the whole. We got rid of committees of the whole. You remember that, I think, Councillor Laurent, and you can inform us a bit more how that worked, because of the, in some reasons, because of the duplication. So can we make things a little more efficient? Yes, but I'm not sure we could get rid of all of these committees here in the township.
Yeah, I don't think at this stage that we're contemplating getting rid of any or anything, but I think this information is now for us to digest and to come back and possibly go through some recommendations or that what we would like to see. Councillor Lauren?
Just to comment on the committee of the whole, then I'll make another comment, or committee of adjustment, committee of the whole. So committee of the whole, we brought in, I want to say in 2008, 2009 timeframe, because it was in that It was in that area, and I think the meeting started like at 4 o'clock. They were essentially working meetings of council. There wasn't a separate committee that would then bring stuff to council. It was council, but staff would bring all of their reports to the committee of the whole. We'd ask the questions. Then they go back 2 weeks later, then they come back to council for approval, and then you'd have some of the reports were being asked to be approved that night because there was an exceeding amount of urgency to the reports. It became a redundant meeting to then just have 2 regular council meetings rather than the committee of the whole, because you were getting the reports right then and there. So I personally wouldn't find the committee reverting back to a committee of the whole as the first meeting of the month and a regular council meeting the second of the meeting of the month as something that would be more effective. I think it would kind of stall us a little bit, at least from a staff perspective. I would say they wouldn't be able to get their reports in every meeting. They would be every other meeting. The one thing that I did have a question on is, and maybe this is just because it was one of the words in there, but do we have a committee that's the Russell Agricultural Society Committee?
Madame Camille-Laflamme?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lauren. So this is a list of the committees that we all have. So some of them are tribunals, they're not really committees, and some of them, like line fence, they don't meet like all the time. They meet maybe once per year, once per 2 years, so there's a lot of them at the bottom. They're like not mandatory, but we need them. So the Russell Ag was put in there on the working sheet because a few years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, it was a recommendation that the mayor was to make a recommendation to have a member sit on this committee. So it's not our committee, but it was like to have a representative, a bit like the recreation in Limoges and the one in Marionville.
Limoges, Marionville, Police Village.
That's correct.
Like
But-
all of those had members on there
Yeah.
or whatnot. But I'd never heard of the Ag Society, that's why.
No, what happened is we had a member at a point that was going informally,
Okay,
and then there was a request to have someone added to that committee, but we never had a recommendation from the mayor, so
okay.
that's why it's there, but
And do we still have a member of council on the Police Village?
yes. The Police Services Board, the Police
The Police
Village?
No,
Service
Police
Board,
Village
but
of
not
Russell
on- yeah.
Trustees.
Yes.
I didn't think we did anymore.
So I certainly haven't attended any meetings or been invited to any meetings since we've started.
Are you,
Yes, I believe we do. I believe it's the mayor.
Okay.
I was saying it was the former mayor was
Yeah.
going.
Well, I've not been invited to one yet, so we should reach out and get that on my schedule. Be happy to go. And same for the Ag Society, if that's a standing where we have a representative, I'm happy to take part in any of those.
Yeah, I looked on their website, I couldn't see any agendas or minutes or anything today, so
Because I know that, yeah, okay, well,
I'm not sure if they're still looking for a member, so.
okay, perhaps we can just reach out there. Councillor Deacon? No, you're good. Any other comments? All right, so moving to item K, service d'enregistrement des décès, rapport CSAS CL 2025-04, que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CSAS CL 2025-04 daté du 14 avril 2025 et adopte the implementation of a death registration service and issuing burial permits by the Township of Russell and the proposed bylaw to amend Schedule A2 of licensing fees of the user fees and charges bylaw 2024-097. Madame Camille-Laflamme, this is a service that's offered by other municipalities, and so we're just adding value, and it's a service for the residents. It just simplifies the process for them, correct?
That's correct, and we had a request to look into it, and that's why we're bringing a report to council.
Yeah. Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lauren.
and it's fully cost recoverable from a user fee perspective?
Yes.
Madam,
Just want to make sure it's completely so that we're not adding incremental FTE based on the new service we're providing.
Madame Camara
No,
Laflamme?
that should be not taking too long.
Yeah,
We
it's my-
looked at everything and all the steps in doing so, so it should be cost recoverable.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Conseiller Lalonde, and then Councillor Armstrong.
I'm going to apologize in advance for not being well-versed on this subject, but I'm just curious or want to understand better what the actual service is. I understand in the case of a death, you know, the hospital has to release a certificate to the funeral home, which goes to pick it up, which can then hold a funeral and arrange a burial. We haven't had this before. Other municipalities don't have it. I just want a real quick sense of what is the actual benefit to someone applying for that now through the township instead of letting the funeral home do it.
Madame
Oh,
Kim-
and just maybe to add to that, is this indeed a requirement of the province that we should have a service like this in place in the first place?
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Madame Camara Laflamme?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lalonde. So we are not required to do that, but it's a service that has to be done by municipalities under the vital statistics. So it's just like marriage license and all that. So if we don't do it like we're doing now, status quo, they go to another municipality. So it's done by funeral homes, usually on behalf of the resident, but it could be done by the resident himself or herself.
Merci.
It could happen.
Follow-up, Councillor Lalonde?
Yes, I mean, I had understood that much in terms of the benefit in terms of statistical information being collected about the deceased and maybe even the cause of death, and that sort of information is collected and then shared at the provincial level for statistical information basis. Is that accurate?
It's a bit like the marriage license, to you, Mr. Mayor, sorry. So we have to just keep a registry, but we don't keep any papers. So everything is sent back to Thunder Bay. That's where it's all registered, just like the marriage license. So we only keep, okay, this date, we issued this one for this person with this number, and we give back two documents to the Thunder Bay office and 2 documents to the funeral home, which will give one to the person that's
Merci.
asking for it.
Merci. Councillor Armstrong, I had Councillor Armstrong. Then I'll get you. You're good? Councillor Lauren?
So if we have a registry, does that mean that registry is publicly available information and somebody can call to find out if a certain person has passed away?
Madame Camara Laflamme?
That's a good question. I can check into that.
I think we definitely need to understand from a privacy perspective whether or not that's information. I'm looking at it from many different perspectives. So maybe something good to understand from other municipalities if that's something that you can call them and find out whether or not they've got a registration for somebody's death. There's many different reasons to why somebody would contact. Could be a business, could be a financial institution, could be an executor, or not executor, well, it could be somebody calling to find out about it. So just important to understand whether or not we can release information.
Yes, we'll look into that.
Yeah, so perhaps we can defer this item then and look into that. I'm assuming that other municipalities doing it will have that information, and so I can just come back quickly. All right, so we'll remove item K to defer it. Any last comments on this? No. Moving to item L. Alors que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CAO 2025-02 en date du 14 avril 2025 et approuve la mise en œuvre d'une approche modérée de type acheté canadien par laquelle la municipalité reviserait ses procédures d'approvisionnement afin de prioriser les fournisseurs canadiens lorsque cela est possible. Alors, thank you very much for this report, Monsieur Godin. Anything to add?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. Basically, this is a report, it's a follow-up to last meeting's report on the impacts of tariffs. So staff was asked to look into a list of questions in relation to exclusions to U.S. procurement. So the report speaks to the results of our research and recommends implementing a moderate Buy Canadian approach. Basically, the idea is that we would review certain thresholds in our procurement policy in order to give us that flexibility to support greater use of invitational processes for contracts that are below the trade agreement limits. And we also analyzed the different options, so a more aggressive option as well as an option of just maintaining the status quo. So you've had a chance to read the report. If there's any questions at all, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much. So my only comments before I open the floor is legal counsel, based on risk management, recommends the use of invitational procurement process. So this approach essentially may reduce the amount of businesses that are offering their services, right?
That's correct. So that flexibility would only be for contracts that are below 133,000, which are the thresholds for the trade agreements, and it's still at the township's discretion. It doesn't mean we always have to go to invitational processes. One of the principles in that option that we want to follow is also to make sure that we're taking into account the best interests of taxpayers. So depending on the situation, sometimes it does make sense to go out in invitation for a bid or for a proposal for. If we're talking about a software or a minor contract. In other cases, we don't necessarily want to limit the competition, and we would want to go through an open tender. So there could definitely still be some U.S. procurement or some U.S. bids in those types of situations.
So option 2 is a hybrid option, but it still allows us to tell the public that we are kind of putting a stance together in terms of a more focused Canadian purchasing approach, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So what we would do is try to buy Canadian when it's appropriate.
And then what you're saying, Mr. Godin, is that staff feels that this approach will allow us to provide best services at the best value for our residents. Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Deakin.
I saw a lot of support motions circulating around the province, probably as early as, the second week of February, regarding reactions and action with regard to the tariffs and the threat of tariffs from the United States. I wasn't sure about the substantive nature of those support motions that were circulating, and I think that this is an example of taking our time and looking at what meaningful action that we can take to be part of the Canadian response and protecting the Canadian economy and Canadian jobs as much as possible. So I'm grateful for the work that administration has done in just the past few weeks. It's been a tight turnaround from when we gave our first direction to administration. So I want to acknowledge that and information that's been circulated with regard to, I believe administration's been participating in webinars and working with through the Rec Complex project in particular. With regard to point 1 there, the invitational processes, I'm kind of building on what the mayor said, but processes like these are more susceptible to inequitable outcomes because it reduces some transparency and opportunity for a wide range of suppliers, potentially favoring certain suppliers who have existing relationships or connections. There's a few other ways that it can impact equity, but what I want to see in point 1 in that directive that we give to administration is if we're expanding the greater use of invitation processes, that some real effort, some extra effort goes into and a conscious effort to ensure supplier diversity in those processes, so that when the call is made under those $133,000 contracts to go invitational, that some extra conscious effort is put into ensuring that we're not just looking at the same players and reaching out to all sorts of different Canadian firms, if that is the intended goal, to make sure that we are still getting a good mix of innovators, providers, bids, prices coming back.
Thank you. Any comments on that, Monsieur Godin, in terms of that assurance? Because it's a tough one, because in a way, and you use the term that we're as open as possible, but we're putting in a process to limit access, so it's kind of counterintuitive. And so when I'm also of agreement that we want to be as open as possible to make sure our residents get the best value and best quality products and services at the best price. And so part of me in looking at that was leaning more on status quo to ensure that. Because at the end of the day, obviously we want to support Made in Canada and so on, but if it's going to cost our residents more, to what point do we want to support that more? And so even with tariffs, if a product or service is the best product and or service at the best value, why do we discriminate? And I know I have an answer to that question, but I'm just throwing it out there as well. So, I'm on the fence about the status quo piece myself. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I'm as confused in some ways. And I looked at a news report just a short while ago about automobile manufacturing, and we do buy automobiles, and we're looking at fire trucks or whatever. But one of the things was just pickup trucks, and the supplier, at least the local dealer, can be local and Canadian, but the supplier is really hard to determine if it's Canadian or not. And they exampled Chevy Silverado pickups. The Super Duty pickup is assembled in Oshawa. The other ones are assembled somewhere in Ohio, I think it was. But anyway, it's very difficult to determine if you're actually getting, and to what extent you're getting Canadian content. And automobiles are probably one of the more complex ones, but that's difficult. And the other thing is, Buy Canadian is one thing. Are we trying to punish the Americans? And at the same time, if we say Buy Canadian, are we punishing the Japanese, the Europeans, and other trade allies that are not tariffing Canadian products, and we're not having countervailing tariffs? And that's another complex part of this entire issue. And I don't know how to sort that out, quite frankly.
That's an excellent point you bring, Councillor Armstrong, in terms of that, if we're pushing the Buy Canadian, and there are other suppliers outside of the U.S. piece that would, in essence here, be punished with this policy. So, any other comments on this? Councillor Lalonde.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape is changing this last month or so. Things are getting a little more confounding. Do we have tariffs? Don't we have tariffs? How many tariffs? What's the rate of tarification? It's been held. It's been suspended. It's been postponed. So it's gotten about as confusing as it can possibly get. In the early stages, it seemed a lot more frightening and potentially devastating for Canadian jobs. That being said, I mean, there are jobs workers are being hurt by this. We have that electric van plant or truck plant that's been shut down now temporarily. That could be in our backyard. It could be Verdun Windows in another situation that has to close its operations down because of something similar happening, but now in the window door business. So it's still to be mindful. I mean, I guess, you know, the argument or the discussion here is, you know, do we promote Canadian at the risk of shutting out good American suppliers at competitive pricing? It's the same argument for buying local. You know, we hear people saying, went to Costco, got this stuff on sale much cheaper than I could buy it in Embrun. Yeah, but the point is, we say we want to support local suppliers, local growers, local agriculture, and it often does come at a slightly higher price or cost of the thing, and yet we continue to champion the cause of buying locally. Well, this is sort of a similar situation, buying Canadian wherever possible and as often as possible. I think, for me personally, the status quo approach for the time being is I think more is required of us in the situation still. It's still quite precarious. But I'll echo too some of the comments that, you know, where do we actually come to land on this? Is it a hybrid version? Is that good enough, or is that still problematic? I would still like to see something significant, something measurable that is different from what we've been doing. And if it is going to cost a few dollars more, but it is going to support something that we can see and touch that is Canadian, for the sake of getting the Canadian made or assembled product that's still made in Canada, even if some of the parts came from the US, then that's what I'd like to support for the time being. I don't know that we have it exactly where it needs to be tonight, and maybe this should be worked on a little further, but I would like it to be meaningful. For me right now, the middle of the road is starting to get meaningful, but I don't know about the moderate approach. I appreciate that we don't want to be radical here either and go out on a limb and face legal challenges. I had said that earlier, but I'd like to see something more than just the status quo. And for me, it reverts back to, why would we buy any more locally previous to the tariff situation than buying from big box stores in Ottawa? The same applies in this case. Why wouldn't we try to buy more Canadian wherever we can, whenever we have the chance to do that in light of the circumstances?
Councillor Deakin?
Yeah, I'll just talk about buying local. I just wanted to be reminded, not to put anybody on the spot, but in the procurement policy, there is a piece around preference to buy local under a certain threshold. Is it, I'm just trying to remember, it's certainly, I don't think it goes all the way up to the $133,000. It might even be like less than $10,000, but I think it's worth mentioning that there is something in there about directors' discretion and encouraging them to prioritize local purchases under a certain threshold, if I'm not mistaken.
Monsieur Godin, are you able to clarify that?
I guess my point is that there's a flavor of this in the procurement policy already, not naming Canada necessarily, but local within the township businesses.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Masso. That is correct. There is a clause permitting that. I don't have the specific threshold in front of me. I'm not certain what value is associated to that, but we do have a clause allowing department heads at their discretion to favor local when it's appropriate. I think it's for minimal value, but it is there.
So, Conseiller Lalonde?
I find that interesting. There may be an opportunity here that, you know, if there's a chance to enhance by either changing that number, by raising it, if we thought it might create some increased opportunity at the local level. I mean, when we're doing that, we're buying Canadian, we're buying local, we're buying, you know, I think that's an interesting comment here that could lead to something.
My only caution is that buying local and buying Canadian are not mutually exclusive. And so I'm a little concerned, given the feedback that we've had here in the short time, discussing the various directions and the challenges of open fairness, and then the other piece in terms of other potential suppliers and the value to our residents and so on. Are we happy with I, or do we want to pull it? Any additional comments? L, I'm sorry. Thank you, Councillor Deacon. No, I appreciate that. So, Conseiller Lalonde?
Well, like I said earlier, some of this is confounding right now with the back and forth. And I don't see it right now being right where I'd like it to be. I would be in favor of pulling it or deferring it.
Merci. Councillor Lauren.
I think I don't mind deferring it, but I think it's the first piece is to approve the implementation, and maybe that's the piece that we defer. But I think the furthermore staff be directed to 1, 2, and 3, I think are things that should be done. And I think that's part of what you would do if we did defer this, to come back to us to say, this is what the approach that we want to take going forward, and come with procurement policy change request, not just what we've done here. I'll agree. I think maybe we defer this item and direct staff to do number 1, 2, and 3, and then come back to us. I think that's probably the prudent step at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Lauren. Councillor Deacon?
Yeah, I appreciate that point. I think it's semantics too, because it's the implementation of the Buy Canadian approach. If it's 1, 2, 3 that are considered the implementation, then I would move forward with those 3, which would include reviewing, promoting, and monitoring. I mean, I don't know if I missed something, if there were more substantial aspects to the implementation. I think it might be okay as is. I agree that I'm ready to say yay on 1, 2, and 3, knowing that it's reviewing.
Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So just to clarify, the recommendation, the way it's been drafted, is to implement these changes, we need to revise the procurement policy, right? So what I'm looking for tonight is what those revisions are. Are they that we're looking to increase those thresholds to give us that flexibility of being able to buy Canadian more? Or if it's status quo, then there's no revisions to the procurement policy. But if it's that more aggressive approach, then there would be revisions to the procurement policy. But it would be difficult for us to make those revisions to the procurement policy without having a direction from council as far as where we want to go with this. Right, I guess that's it.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, I think we're going to pull item I, and when it comes back, it may be deferred, or it may be parsed out with a status quo with some direction, if I understand correctly. But we'll see what happens when this item comes back. Okay? Excellent. So we're adding that to our list. So remove item I. L. It's going to be a fun one after this. All right. Moving to item 12. Rapport d'un investigateur ou de l'Ombudsman, on n'en a pas. Numéro 13, avis de motion. Avis de motion présenté par conseillère Deacon. Mise en place d'un programme de sécurité routière en milieu rural en Ontario. The council receives... it's a notice of motion that will be considered at our next council meeting. Do we need to read the motion, Madame Camille Laflamme?
It says in the our procedural bylaw, yes, but we have it in the package, so it's up to council if you want me to read it. It's already
Sure.
in there.
So it's in, if it's a requirement in our procedural, I think we should read it.
Okay, so it's a notice motion moved by Lisa Deakin and seconded by Mayor Mike Ternowski to support the establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Whereas speeding, distracted driving, and impaired driving are among the leading causes of driving-related collisions, injuries, and fatalities in Ontario. Sorry. And whereas municipalities are called upon to modify driver behavior through expensive infrastructure and policing, and whereas infrastructure and policing are inherently limited in their effectiveness at reducing speeding, distracted driving, and impaired driving, and whereas despite only having 17% of the population, 55% of the road fatalities occur on rural roads, or SAR 2021, and whereas rural municipalities are fiscally strained by maintaining extensive road networks on a smaller tax base, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Russell specifically requests that the Government of Ontario take action to implement the Rural Road Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead, which will allow Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the number of people being killed and seriously injured on Ontario's rural roads, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Premier, Ontario Minister of Transportation, Ontario Minister of Infrastructure, Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Ontario Minister of Rural Affairs, Ontario Associate Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Response, Ontario Minister of Health, the Member of Provincial Parliament for Glengarry, Prescott Russell, and Good Roads.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Camille-Laflamme. Appreciate it. So this will come back at our next meeting. Thank you. So item 14, so we're going to go question period on meeting of the day. Before, just to let you know, so we'll take after that, we'll take a quick break and before we come back. So an item 14, question period on meeting of the day. So questions must be in relation to item on the agenda. For asking a question, fill in your name and address. If you wish to receive a response from a member of council, please leave a phone number or email on the sheet. State your name state your name before asking your question, and disclaimer: by asking questions during the council meeting, you are consenting to be part of the live broadcast and the official public recording of these proceedings. Thank you.
Harry Baker, 208 Forest Road.
Good evening, Mr. Baker.
Hello. So my first question is on 11C.
Mr. Baker, is
Sorry?
just confirming the microphone's on it, and if
It
not,
is.
if
Am
it
I
is,
not sitting
yeah,
close enough?
Councillor Lalonde is having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Lalonde. So I would really ask, why can't we go back to the weekly then for the garbage if there's not going to be a big cost difference?
That's a good question. Monsieur Bourgon, I think, mentioned that the rationale for going to bi-weekly was really to encourage our residents as much as possible to use the composting system. That's correct, Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And right now, it's weekly until council passes the report.
So there is no change at this point until
Exactly.
So I'm a family of 6 adults.
Are you? Okay.
We also compost and have been for several years. We're not using at the moment the green bin, but our garbage bin, even though we recycle both the cardboard and the plastic and the glass and all those things, is quite full. And I don't think I could have 2 weeks. Am I able to purchase a second garbage bin in order to allow the extra garbage there, since I'm not allowed to have a tag?
Thank you. Monsieur Bourgon?
At this time, a second bin was not considered.
But
Could it be?
But so can we do maybe a follow-up? If a resident did want to buy a second one, would that be an option for them?
We'll have to look into more, because now that would be 2 tips for one.
I understand.
one
I understand. So we can just, as long as we can get the answer to the question, I think.
Okay. Do I need to put my email to get that response? Or?
No, we'll put that as part of our follow-ups
Okay.
in the next council meeting.
The second question is regarding item 11, the one on waste. Oh, I guess it's F, sorry, water and sewer, the annual report. So my question is, why haven't we been fined by the ministry for exceeding the limits of ammonia that we're putting into the Castor River?
So clarify, why have we not been fined, is what you're
Yes,
asking?
other municipalities are fined when they exceed the limits, and I'm wondering why we have not. Is it because, could it be that we've said we're going to fix it?
Okay, great. Monsieur Bourgon?
I don't have the answer.
Okay, so we follow up on, are there fines that we should be receiving on that, or is the threshold not high enough to receive a fine? So I wouldn't mind getting the answer to that question, so as a follow-up. So I would assume that if we are not we're in an area where we should be receiving fines, highly surprised that we don't receive fines. And so maybe that's the clarification to get. We'll get back. We'll get back to you on
And is the
that.
fix, the $19 million fix that the consultant was, in last spring's report, was suggesting?
I think Monsieur Bourgon did clarify that there was some changes to the sludge aspect to help improve some of the scores.
So the
Monsieur
19
Bourgon-
million.
Monsieur Bourgon, go ahead.
So the 19 million was presented during the public meeting only, based on all the different annual reports, that it was deemed that it was not necessary and it was removed, with the caveat that we still start looking at the planification.
At a solution.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And will the solution deal with the suspended solids getting close to the limit?
Monsieur Bourgon, well, we don't have a solution fixed yet, right? But assuming the solution would be to deal with all aspects of improving the quality of wastewater.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
Is it possible that some of the suspended solids are fecal matter?
I'm not sure that I can give you that answer, Monsieur Bourgon. Is that an answer that we can provide?
We can provide. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have the answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
if the analysis is made and the answer is available, but I don't know that as long as I don't think that we'll do a specific analysis for fecal matter if it's not already included.
Which is why I'm concerned about being at the limit. If it is fecal matter, then I would be concerned of, well,
Thank you.
fish and whatever downstream.
Thank you.
My next question is about 11K, the death registration. I believe most of the burial cemeteries are looked after by churches, local churches. And I'm just wondering, what is the value of asking a township to receive burial permits? I know it was mentioned, if I could say that, it was mentioned that like marriage licenses. Well, I didn't have to buy a marriage license because the church had a ban system. Not that they banned marriages, but if they announced the marriage was coming up 3 times and nobody objected, you didn't have to go and buy a license. So I'm just wondering, are churches going to be exempt from having to purchase a burial permit? And is there going to be staff from the township there to make sure that it's properly done and all of that?
So you're asking multiple questions here, but I think the one question you're asking is, in terms of exemptions for churches, I think we're just adding a service level here. We're not changing any policies around death certificates. So I don't think that there's an answer to that particular question because we're not changing that. We're just adding, the recommendation was to add a service level here, and that's it. In terms of what is within the church's purview, that I don't know that we can comment on. Madame Camille-Laflamme, do you have that additional information?
No, Mr. Mayor. So as previously mentioned, it's only the document that is provided to the funeral home or to the resident. So after that, they go to the church, they go to their cemetery, they go just as usual. We don't have anything to do.
Okay.
Where's the value added for buying a burial permit? I can understand a building permit because that means a building inspector and probably MPAC will be notified to come out and have a check on things.
so
But
just-
where's the added value for a
Yeah,
burial
so that's fair.
permit?
So the added value, I believe it's a requirement now Madame Camille?
Yes, that's part of the two documents that the person that issues this has to give to the funeral home.
Yeah, so added value for the residents is access to receiving it. The funeral homes come to collect it. Will they be requiring us to provide that? Or the funeral homes already do that? Or the churches already do that? So are we adding a service that we don't need to add, I guess is what your question is?
For $35.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's not an imposed service. If there is no need for it, we'll see quickly that there's no value for it and we'll just stop offering it.
Mr. Mayor, we have to. It's
Oh.
the two parts that have to be sent to the registrar. The two other parts are, one is this one.
So it's a
So the province is giving it
requirement.
over to the municipality.
Madame
They're
Camille
downloading
Laflamme?
this to the municipality.
How long has this requirement been in place?
Wherever what they sent to us is older than Roger, so it's
Wow.
Yeah.
the guide is
He's a
from
young man.
1994.
So traditionally, it's gone to other municipalities to do, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
because the previous owner of the funeral home was closer to the township where he had a head office. Now
Okay.
the person has sold, there's a new person, but it's still in the vicinity, so they just continue.
Just simplify the process. Okay, thank you.
I still don't understand, I have to say, so I'm hoping there's going to be some information coming out to better, for the public to understand why the municipality is
But
charging for a
That's not a
burial
question,
permit.
though. Yeah.
Sorry?
So fair enough. I think this item's going to get deferred, so it will come back, and
Okay.
that's duly noted. Thank you.
Did the other councillor want to comment?
Councillor Deacon?
This is a provincial requirement that we could do here or we could not do here.
Yes, we're-
So the level, it's not, we didn't invent a program, we
No.
didn't come up with this ourselves. This is a requirement that has to happen. Do we want to provide it here or have folks go to another municipality? That is the question. So I just want to be very clear that for those who haven't read the report thoroughly, it outlines that very clearly. And the level of services, a local funeral home could access this service locally. And that is what we proceed with or
Presumably
not.
for its a burial within the township,
Okay,
right? So if I can't get a building permit, sorry, burial permit for the township of Russell, I'm not allowed to bury my loved one in Russell Township. I have to go to another municipality.
If I can
No.
say, in the
Okay.
report itself, it applies to cremation as well, where the ashes could end up literally anywhere.
thank you.
So is that, it's only for burial within this township?
No,
or
it's
we have
not.
to pay?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Just as in the report, it stated that the previous funeral home could go to any township that was offering the service, and they had access to do it already.
I don't get it at all.
For which they were paying that.
That's correct.
Good evening, Tony Bass.
Good evening, Mr. Bass.
My question is concerning the February 3rd meeting at Emblem Hotel concerning the sports complex. I'd like to know what was discussed at that meeting.
Is this on the agenda?
The sports complex
But
update.
is there a February 3rd meeting that you're referring to on
Well,
the agenda?
there was a meeting
There was a council meeting, you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
It was a meeting concerning the sports complex on February 3rd at the Emblem Hotel.
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I mean, that's not part of the agenda. Staff, did you have a meeting on February 3rd at the?
Thank you,
Madame
Mr. Mayor,
Vital?
members of council. No, we never had a meeting there.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. So
Well,
like,
I was given by 2 or 3 people that there was a meeting held with council.
was there a council meeting?
It wasn't
So-
council, it was concerning the sports complex and it had to do with the contractors.
Well, we were not invited.
Yeah.
We were not part of that meeting. I was not even aware of this.
Well, if I find out, I'm coming back.
Is that a question?
I'm letting you know.
Thank
And
you.
my other question
Just a
is-
second, just a second. I have Councillor Lauren now wants to speak to.
I can't talk to whether there was a meeting that was held with contractors. That was a separate meeting at the
Their contractor.
Pardon me?
The
The
contract.
questions.
The contractor? Like the construction company?
Yes,
Met at the hall?
yes.
Okay, then I have nothing, no comment for that because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll get more information on that then. Okay, I was wondering who ordered the bins, the green bins?
That was that was done by staff. Monsieur
Okay.
Bourgon, anything, just a second, sir. Monsieur Bourgon, anything to add on that? We
No.
followed the same process as we do.
Nothing to add.
Okay.
Do people not know that we have raccoons in our community, and with those bins, the raccoons are gonna open them up and they're gonna be spilling them all over the roads? Who's gonna be cleaning up that mess? Because when I live out in the country, raccoons get in everything.
So do you have a lockable bin right now? I don't have a lockable bin. I don't think I've ever had one, but Monsieur Bourgon?
So there's no lock on the containers, because when your truck the
Comes
truck's
by, it
gonna-
has to
gonna
open.
Tip it, yeah, it needs to open. So we've been telling or advising people they can put a bungee until you roll it to the road, and it's not really different than your bag that you put at the side.
Yeah, thank you. There's the answer.
Okay. I guess that's it for me.
Thank you.
Good evening, Rhonda Bradley, 159 Edie Road. I'm sorry, I don't remember the agenda number, but I am interested in speaking or having some information about the water wastewater report that was tabled today. I heard from Mr. Bourgon that we have not received a reply as yet from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. I'm wondering if we've ever had a response
In the
from the
past?
ministry.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Monsieur Bourgon, have they responded to our previous inquiries? Monsieur?
Well, inquiries, yes. When we do reports, they simply acknowledge.
Okay, so when they receive a report, they acknowledge. If there are inquiries, they respond.
Yes.
There's your answer.
Would it be fair to say that that when they list us on the ECA report as non-compliant, that would be the ministry's response? We are non-compliant?
Monsieur Bourgon?
I don't have the answer. I'll have to look it up. I don't
Yeah,
have the answer
so
today.
Ms. Bradley, are you stating that our township it's written up publicly that we're not compliant?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll look that up.
I just heard for the first time this evening that the information that was presented last May, that we were looking at a short-term fix in the range of about 19 million between the two lagoons, that has been removed. And my question is, when was it removed and why?
Monsieur Bourgon?
The when, I cannot speak to it. It happened throughout the last revision. So the final report presented to council, the final report that was made publicly for several weeks did not have that short-term measure. And it was the recommendation changed throughout the study and based on all the data that we collected in the result from all the several discharge.
Thank you.
And so is there a plan to address our continued pollution of the Castor River? And if so, do we have a timeline for that based on updated report?
Monsieur Bourgon, first of all, the term, the pollution of the river, is that accurate? I'm not an expert, and it's a simple question. That
I guess we'll have to look at the definition, but the concentration of ammonia did exceed. The total loading did not. If you look at the toxicity, that the test that I've referred, well, I'll explain to council, it's basically you test the water with fish prior to discharge. We did not fail. So, and in terms of timeline, we'll bring further information to council to implement the recommendation from the master plan.
Thank you.
So there's no concern on the part of our council and staff that we continue to exceed our effluence limits that have been put in place by the Ministry of Environment.
Monsieur Bogon, should we be concerned, and should we be concerned more than we already do in terms of mitigating those results?
So not to take this subject on a light note, but as a staff level, yeah, we're concerned, but we know that based on, like, operationally, there's a lot of things that we're doing, we can do, that there's no red flag to raise to council at this point. That doesn't mean that we'll just put it aside. There's still things to be done, and we still need to work on that big solution from discharge, and that's what I've told council a few months ago as well.
So, from a staff perspective, obviously there's concern, always trying to get the best possible results. From a council perspective, you're telling us that we should not be concerned. There is no emergency at this stage. However, Councillor Armstrong earlier stated that our levels are continuously going up, and so should that trend be of concern?
I'll say yes, in a way, but again, we're planning, we're working on, like, at staff, we're working on it. We just complete our master plan. We'll put funds, or at least a project identified in the DC, so to collect money for that ultimate treatment plan. So at this point, we need to follow the situation carefully, but we'll keep on reporting to council as any future changes, and I'll get back as well to council following Councillor Armstrong's question about the trending of other parameters. Merci.
Okay, thank you. Just a second, Ms. Bradley. I have Councillor Deakin with a question.
Just speaking as one member of council, and therefore not on the whole, the question was to council. I am concerned, especially about the lack of, there seems to be a gray area between what's being sent into the MECP and what we're hearing back right now, which to my understanding is nothing. So that is an area that I want us to be looking into, and as I understand on that item earlier in the evening, we did ask staff to follow up on that specific, and so my next step would be looking forward to seeing the information that comes back when that contact is made and we have more understanding from the regulatory perspective from the ministry. Are we moving, are we moving in the right direction in terms of the plan that they want to see? Is there something urgent that they want us to be doing right now? So yes, I share concern, especially for that gray area, and I believe that council addressed that tonight with a direction to administration.
Thank you, Councillor Deakin, and yes, that's correct. That's an item for follow-up. Yeah. Ms. Bradley?
So I would just add to Councillor Deakin's point that I would like to understand when non-compliance moves to another stage. We've been deemed non-compliant by the ministry for several years now. So what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so as part of those answers in the follow-up, we'll get that answered as well.
Mr. Bourgon mentioned that he didn't have any red flags at this time. I'm curious to know what a red flag would look like.
So I think that will be part of the answers that will come back to us, because at the end of the day, we'll look at it from the governing body on this.
And my last question in regard to this agenda item is, currently, are the costs being projected for this fix, short-term fix, will they exceed the DC charges? Will we be expected to also look for additional funding?
Mr. Bourgon?
I'm not sure if I understood the question properly, but if we're talking about the ultimate plan or treatment plan, it's currently not in the DC. So it will be added in our next study. So it'll be presented to council later this year.
And I think, I'll give it to you a second. And I think as well, it's safe to say that for all infrastructure, right now, we're aggressively looking for grants, both federally and provincially. Federally is on hold right now, but we've re-engaged provincially since the election is completed, including a letter campaign and so on. So that's been active already. Councillor Lauren, you
If
had
I may,
something?
though, that
Just
wasn't my question.
Hold on.
Just a sec. Councillor Lauren has.
So, and on that point, and that's what many municipalities that look to upgrade these types of facilities do within the province. We're not out of the ordinary looking for grants, and we're not alone doing this, right? It's something that is done by every municipality. The only thing I wanted to state was when we're looking at the master plan
Wastewater.
For wastewater, when you're completing that and working with the development charge study that we're conducting this year to include fixed for growth type of projects like this, we're looking at a fix, not a temporary fix, not a situational fix. That is for a permanent type of fix to the situation, correct?
Mr. Bourgon?
True, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to correct, because Mr. Bradley said, the temporary fix, and that's not the case. We're looking at the permanent fix within this master plan study and the the development charge study. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just a sec.
My understanding.
Just a sec. So, did you have your hand up? No? Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Bradley.
My understanding was, and perhaps this has also been updated and I'm behind, but my understanding was that when we saw this information last May, that there was a recommendation that we needed an immediate fix, and then there was a long-term regional fix. So when I speak about immediate and long-term, I am defining between those as was outlined in last May. So when I ask about whether the DC charges will cover the immediate fix, I'm asking if we no longer need that fix anymore, in which case we're only pursuing a regional long-term solution? Or are we still looking at a way that we stopgap our immediate concerns while we work on a regional plan?
So, and Monsieur Bourgon, feel free to jump in here, but 2 points. I think the immediate result was there was some action right away put in operationally to mitigate some of the urgent concerns. And secondly, when you speak to the regional fix, a long-term regional fix, we are looking for a regional fix, but we're also open to any fix for that matter. It doesn't necessarily have to be multi-municipality and so on. So I just wanted to clarify that. Monsieur Bourgon, anything else to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think that you resumed the situation.
So I don't have an answer to my question, though, which is, are we still pursuing or requiring a shorter term or mid-term that actually deals with some of the issues? I know that a number of these tweaks have been added to the system over the past year, and we still continue to have the results that we do. So is there a plan that will close that gap? If it is going to be closed, will the development charges that we're planning to levy cover those costs? And how long, what is the timeline before we start looking at the longer term, whether it's regional or otherwise, fix?
So I think the long term is being looked at already. And that will be in discussions with the DC charge, right? That's a big part of it. In terms of the short term aspect, I think as Monsieur Bourgon clarified already, we have put in some operational fixes. But as Ms. Bradley is saying, these don't appear to be fixing the problem. But I think Monsieur Bourgon is going to come up with a defined answer to that as a follow-up, correct? Because we've talked about what is pollution, what are the levels, and if they are increasing or not, and what are the fixes.
So we did some changes this year. We're still making some, but all those adjustments and improve or maintenance of our facilities, it's all covered under the operational at this point. So there is no DC specific for those.
For the short term
for the
on the
short
capital,
term,
yeah.
if we use those terminology. And as term of the long, like the ultimate treatment facility, yeah, that will be covered with our DC. And we need to start working on it now, since it's a long planning process.
That's correct.
So I'd like to move on just quickly to different agenda items. One was in relation to the rec center update and the expectation that that we may see a grant. We had actually hired a lobbying firm, and I'm wondering how many meetings we had and whether that contract is fulfilled.
Sure. So I'll ask Mr. Godin to finalize that, but I can tell you we just had a meeting today as well. We've been meeting regularly with them as part of the letter writing campaign. We did put a hold on the contract during the election period when the writ is dropped because we're not getting the full value of that. And I can say from my perspective certainly that we've received full value on that. In terms of having a full accountability of all the meetings that we've had, I'm not sure if that's something that council wants to ask for direction on, but that would be a lot of work in terms of staff. Mr. Godin, what are your thoughts on that?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. No, I think you summarized it well. So, I mean, we've had multiple, like tens of meetings with government officials as far as lobbying for grants. And we also, like you mentioned, meet every two weeks with this company, and they've been helping us not only for grant applications, but also for lobbying for any issues that we need with the province and the federal. And as far as if it's worth the $60,000 that the contract was, I would say yes. I mean, I think the service that they're delivering to us is very much appreciated and helpful. And we can't allocate 100% of our success on a recent grant application to them. We have no way of knowing if that's what led to the success of it. But we did get a grant for the road improvements. For the road improvements on Route 300 for, I think it was, it's a project of, so the grant was $6.5 million. So for a project of $13 million.
Yeah, and so they certainly helped us, supported us in opening some doors at Queen's Park for us in a trip that we did on that, and through the Roma conference as well. And again, it's hard to say that they're 100% responsible for that, but certainly our MPP has been a great hand as well. But they are advising, and they're continuing to advise regularly on that. In terms of the fulfillment of the contract, Mr. Godin, I know we put a hold on it, and they offered that, so we had a timed contract, but because of the writ was dropped, they recommended that we suspend the contract until after the election, so we are extending the contract without being charged any more than that. So they've been very helpful on that as well. Mr. Godin, anything else?
No, that's it.
I think the other aspect is they're also helping us now with a letter campaign in terms of the impact of the tariffs and the support that we're going to be looking for, considering the government, certainly the federal government, is going to have revenues that are coming from those tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, and so we'll be looking for some support because of those.
Okay. Final question relates to the building inspector hire, and I acknowledge that we often are in a position where we have to hire somebody that may not have the full skill set, and we close that gap through our hiring process. My question is, when we find ourselves in those spots, do we make any requirement that they serve the community for a minimal amount of time to ensure that we benefit from that training?
Thank you. I think there's a couple of aspects to that question. So first of all, there is a minimum requirement on any job posting, and there has to be a meeting of that minimum requirement. If there isn't, if nobody applies, then perhaps it gets reposted. In terms of hiring someone, I think long-term, keeping them, Monsieur Godin, I'm not sure that we sign contracts that require minimum years of service. I don't know that those contracts are really easy to uphold as well. Perhaps you can comment on that.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So I've seen both instances, so it is kind of a case by case, depending on the position. I don't know if Chief McBain knows for this one in particular, but there is sometimes a requirement to have certain qualifications, so those, they may be paid, we may pay, invest in the training, invest in our staff, try to have, I mean, I think it encourages retention and staff to work for us. So it has happened, and it does happen that we do that without having an obligation for that employee to stay. There has been some situations where we did require that contract or that commitment to stay for a certain amount of time, and if that wasn't fulfilled, then there'd be a reimbursement of the course fees. But like I said, in this particular case here, I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't know if Chief McBain, if you have the answer.
Anything to add, Chief McBain?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. For this particular case, there is no contractual agreement that they would have to stay as a certain time frame.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now moving to 15, but I think we've been sitting for a while, so let's take a pause for the cause for 10 minutes and reconvene at 10 to the hour. Thank you. Fait que, All right, council is reconvening. So we're at item 15. Motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. This is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Questions, comments? I believe we are removing CHKL. CHKL. I need a mover. Am I missing anything? I'm good. So that is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for a vote to remove items CHKL. All in favor? And pass. Those items have now been removed. Motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees with the exceptions of items CHKL. This is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deacon. I will call for the vote. All four. Passed. Thank you. All right. We'll start with item C. Bear with me for a second. Okay, so the council receive report ISPW 2025 -05 dated April 14th, 2025, and approve the proposed bylaw for waste management activities in the first, second, and final reading. The proposed bylaw to amend Schedule A6 of the user fees and changes of the bylaw 2024-097 to start the automated solid waste collection the week of November 3rd, 2025, and 4, that the solid waste collection become bi-weekly as of March 2nd, 2026. This is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deacon. It's on the table. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Lauren.
Make an amendment that we remove number 4.
So I have an amendment to remove item number 4. This is seconded by Councillor, no? Oh, yeah, question? Go
It's got to
ahead.
be on the table first.
Oh, yeah. So we need a seconder to remove item 4. This is seconded by Councillor Lauren. Sorry,
Armstrong.
Councillor Armstrong. I don't need to do a vote, right, to put it on the table now?
No, it's on the table.
It's on the table, yeah. Thank you. Questions and comments on this amendment? Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. I just wanted to return to the question of bins. And with the organic waste program that came in, anyways, all that said, I think that with the bins, we don't know how much it's going to cost quite yet because of the possibility of upsizing. There's been a question tonight about upsizing and a question about an extra bin and what the cost would be for that. So that would be related to number 3 of the recommendation here. And I'd like to know what that user fee cost would be.
Mr. Mayor, we have the
The
amendment on the
amendment,
table.
yeah, we're discussing the
Am I
amendment.
just supposed to speak to the amendment?
Yes, now it's
Yeah.
the amendment
Yeah.
that's on the table.
So let's talk about the amendment for a second here. So removing solid waste collection become bi-weekly as of March 2nd, 2026. Originally, Monsieur Bourgon, the plan was to do that at the start of the year.
The automated collection was planned to start January 1st, 2026.
Moving to bi-weekly though.
With the bi-weekly, council never voted or took position on the date.
Okay, so removing this doesn't change anything right now other than that bi-weekly start, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councillor
Lauren?
Then let me be explicitly clear. I want to remove the actual request to go to bi-weekly and remain weekly collection. That is the ask. That is the amendment, to maintain the weekly collection of solid waste, as I have been shown zero benefit to it from a cost perspective to the resident,
So-
from a service perspective.
So right now, the amendment is to just remove item 4. Are you withdrawing that amendment and putting another one in?
Well, I'll ask the question, if I remove item number 4, does that maintain a weekly service until such time as
It's
staff
changed.
comes back to council with a report that says we want to go to bi-weekly?
Mr. Bourgon?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So if by removing that mention, it's until council asks us in 2 years' time frame or what, but
Okay.
at this point, yeah, that would.
Then I maintain
Leave
it.
the collection weekly.
Thank
until
you.
further-
Thank you, Councillor Lauren. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, may I just suggest that we change item 4 to that the solid waste collection remain a weekly collection?
I think if we remove it, it is a weekly collection until it's changed, as Mr. Bourgon mentioned. So I think we're okay with the proposed direction from Councillor Lauren in terms of his wish with this amendment. Councillor Deacon.
Okay, I'll speak to that amendment.
Thank you.
I won't be supporting that amendment. I wanted to go with option, the other option, the alternative option presented by staff with regard to number 4, which was after 6 months of organic collection, report back to council to determine the feasibility of reducing the solid waste to biweekly. I want more information. So I'm not supporting the amendment to remove it tonight.
Well, I
But an
think
alternative.
if I may, and Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin, clarify if this makes sense, but by removing item 4, there is no action being taken, but you have direction from staff or we have direction to staff in terms of being able to look at that option down the road and come back with a recommendation, taking into account what Councillor Deacon is mentioning here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense for us. We can, and the information can be brought back like at the anniversary date in a year time that the organic collection's been happening or, so I guess if we have direction to council to still look into it and like when it's feasible or when there's a financial advantage to bring
Yeah.
it back to council.
So my point, though, is by removing item 4, in amending it, by removing item 4, I would like us to still look at that. We're not changing it. We don't have a date right now to change it. But I mean, if Ottawa's been doing it for all these years, how can they be doing it and doing a good job at it? And, from an environmental perspective, that's part of our strategic plan too, is to be, environmentally sensitive to these issues. And so perhaps maybe it's just a requirement of coming back to find solutions, see how the city of Ottawa does it or other municipalities our size do it to address questions that Councillor Deacon brought up and to address concerns that have been brought up throughout this process. I don't want us to just kind of leave it at that. I would like to see a recommendation come in the future that addresses these concerns. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I'll just make one comment on the Ottawa perspective. As they also made a substantial financial injection into the organics program, where they had to have a certain tonnage going in every single time. So there was a massive push to go to organics, which then forced them to go to that bi-weekly because there was a cost savings. Right now, there's no cost savings. So if something came back down the road, I would consider it, but at this point in time, I can't reasonably consider removing it without a benefit to the resident.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
When comparing ourselves to Ottawa, do we put the same material in the green bin and black bin as Ottawa does? Or does Ottawa put more, which allows them to reduce the black bin more? And I don't know the answer to that. That's a question that would be, we'd have to answer to be able to vote informatively on this.
So again, I go back to the point that I think that this item 4 obviously is creating some issues at the table right now, and I think that the best way to address that is by going back and providing more information to justify. If we already have the truck coming by the door, what's the justification for not collecting it, other than to push residents into more organic. I'm not saying that I don't agree. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that, but I think that's kind of the direction, and I think it could help answer or mitigate some of these concerns from this side of the table. Councillor Deakin?
I'm just wondering if administration's looking for a certain time frame, because the alternative that was in the report was 6 months to report back. So are we, if we're removing it altogether and just assuming that they're coming back, I'm just wondering if administration needs more clarity from council. And that was why I was going to vote against the amendment and bring in the alternative for number 4.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Masso. I was going to suggest that we go the way Councilor Deakin is suggesting, and just it sounds to me like what we're proposing what council is looking for is the other option A, which is basically to provide more information, to reevaluate in 6 months' time if we do want to, to determine the feasibility of going bi-weekly. It doesn't have to be 6 months. It can be more. It can be less. But I think it would be good to have a clearer direction rather than just removing item 4.
Councillor Armstrong?
In that case, I would like to recommend that it not be 6 months, but 1 year, because we want to have some time when the new black bins are in use, if they were a different size, etc., because that may affect the results of any study.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Sorry, Councillor Lauren.
Because I made the amendment request, I will alter the amendment request to state, remove item number 4 and replace with option A from the report, however, change 6 months to a year. Now,
I'll still second that.
Thank you. Can we have that on the screen there for all council members to see?
It's right at the bottom. Oh, no.
C'est beau. Other option recommended after 6 months organic collection, report back to determine feasibility. So after 12 months?
Correct.
Okay, and we have a seconder on that motion. Questions and comments on that amendment? Any comments, questions? All right, so I'll call for the vote on the amendment. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. So now I'll read the amended version. Should I read it or should you read it, Madame Camille Flamme? Are you feeling comfortable that you can read this?
Sure.
Okay, allez-y.
So as in the report, the first part, that council received report ISPW 2025-05 dated April 14, 2025, and approve, 1, the proposed bylaw for waste management activities in first, second, and final reading. 2, the proposed bylaw to amend Schedule A6 of the user fees and charges bylaw 2024-097. 3, to start the automated solid waste collection the week of November 3rd, 2025. And 4, do you have it there? After a 12-month of organic collection, report back to council to determine the feasibility of reducing the solid waste to bi-weekly.
Merci. I need a mover and seconder. So moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote.
We already had
Oh,
the.
I have another amendment, though. Is that okay? Are we putting this through? Or?
Well, that's the amended version. You have another amendment to propose?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Sorry, we'll have to come back to that.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So the number 4 amendment was approved. I want to look at number 3. I would like to make an amendment, propose an amendment to remove number 3 and direct administration to come back with what the user fee cost would be for an upsized or extra bin before such time as we proceed with the automated solid waste collection on November 3rd. So again, the amendment would be to remove number 3 and as council provide direction to bring
Okay.
that back with that information.
So I have an amendment on the table. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Monsieur Bourgon?
We need to order the bins.
Yeah, I understand, but there's an amendment on the table, and then we'll discuss. Do I have a seconder on the amendment? Seconded by Councilor Lauren. It's on the table. We can discuss. Monsieur Bourgon?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. A detail that was not put in the report, but we need to place the order of the bin if we want to receive them in time and have the delivery. So if it's not part of the report, so if that's not part of the recommendation, we'll have to hold off. We'll likely need, so it's gonna be even tight to meet the January 1st deadline to go to the automated.
So, just a question, first of all, in terms of sizing of the bins, the company, like they're giving us the maximum size? I remember there were 2 different
No,
sizes.
So there's 3 different sizes.
Yeah.
Right now, we're aiming for the same size as the green bin, which is already much bigger than the 1 bag allowed per week.
Okay. And that's the middle size you said? You just
It's the smaller size that we can use on the automated truck.
So we can have bigger sizes as well?
We can have bigger size.
And in terms of impact on residents using bigger sizes, they would just have to buy their own bin?
Or we order a few, like some
Super
bigger,
size.
and they would offset or pay the
Change the
difference.
difference. So that is possible already to do that?
That would be possible.
Okay. Councillor Deacon, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it just wasn't clear to me earlier in the evening when there was a question asked about having to have 2 bins. And then in the report itself, it referred to the option to upsize, but it didn't state explicitly whether it was the township or on the resident themselves to purchase a second bin on their own. So I understand the urgency. I guess what I would like to understand is, does that mean that administration will point inquiries of residents to those bins for their own purchase, or is administration planning to bring in a program whereas those bins would come into the user fee program, the user fee bylaw, excuse me, and if it's that route, then I would like to know what those user fees are before we approve that.
So ultimately,
If it's possible for the administration to simply refer them to a place to buy their upsized bins, and it won't form part of the user bylaw, then I'm not as concerned and would maintain number 3 in here.
I think in terms of a standard for the company, is there a requirement?
Yes, so there's some specific to respect. I could recommend to council to bring back, if have direction to bring back some of those operational matter on the bins, but we can still proceed with the automated collection starting the week of November 3rd.
And alternatively, of not starting to the week of November 3rd, it would get pushed off to January likely, is what you're saying?
Well, exactly. So our contract's based on January 1st, 2026. Just for us, since we'll be delivering those bins in the fall, that's why we recommend the council to start using them.
So it's not practical to deliver in January?
No, well, we won't have time. With December,
Yeah.
let's assume that all our staff are pushing snow, so it won't be feasible.
That's fair, that's fair. So we have a conundrum at the table. Any additional comments or questions on this amendment? Councillor Law.
So if we gave direction to staff to come back to us with cost and where people can actually purchase these specific bins that are equipped for those machines, the upsized bins? Is that feasible for staff to do, to come back with that? Even if we were to approve this tonight, because for the majority of the people, they're going to use the bins that are going to be provided, I would assume, based on the current program. So approving that and moving forward, that's great. But as Councilor Deacon said, she wants more information on the upsize bins if a resident chooses to want to upsize their bin. Is there, would there be an exchange type of program where they can give the small one and get a bigger one, or do they have to go buy one and then they'd have both, but it can only use one at a time?
So, yeah,
Mr.
true,
Bourgon?
Mr. Mayor. So yes, we'll bring back some details of how that technicality of the program would work.
So what you're saying, Mr. Bourgon, is that we are able to accommodate those residences somehow, but we have to figure out the details.
Exactly.
Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. It comes down to level of service and making sure that council is aware of the level of service that will be provided. So I'm hearing that there will be a solution, we just don't know what it looks like yet, and that level of service will be met, that there will be an option.
Okay, so we'll note that as a follow-up item to be able to, for us to understand that, that solution, that particular solution, if residents feel that those bins are too small. I don't think that one of the solutions can ever be 2 bins.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Being the member of council, I'm going to take a cue from Councillor Lauren from earlier. I propose that amendment, and so I will withdraw the amendment to remove number 3.
All right, thank you, Councillor Deacon.
Thank you for working through the conundrum.
No, that's great. This is what the best part of council. Councillor Lauren.
So now the amended resolution is on the table still?
Still stands, yeah.
All right, so I have just one quick confirmation from staff, from Mr. Godin, Mr. Bourgon, and Mr. Dagenet, is that as part of the determination of the feasibility of reducing the solid waste to biweekly would be a financial impact?
Mr. Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So based on the conversation of what I've heard tonight, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would expect, Mr. Bourgon, that council receives a full report, including financial side, including environmental, with data that backs up recommendations so that council can make an informed decision on the value of cost versus environmental and so on. Correct?
Yeah, correct. And I was going to add, I think regardless, we'll still bring back the information of how the program's performing.
Okay, excellent. And until that time, it will be status quo. Well, the new status quo with the black bin.
Still collecting every week.
That's correct. All right, so we have an amended version on the table. Would council like to us to reread that, or is everyone in understanding? That's great. So I will call for the vote on the amended version of all 4 against, and that's passed. Thank you. Bear with me for a second. All right, moving to item H. That council receives reports PR 2025-05 dated April 14th, 2025, and 1 declined the ad hoc grant request for CJR radio and approved to fund the demand for special from the council budget from the special events budget line for $3,000, and to decline the ad hoc grant request from the Russell Soccer Club for $1,500 and approve the in-kind request for use of the hall for $99. And this is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deacon. It's on the table. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Lauren.
I'm going to ask that council supports the $1,500 to the Russell Soccer Club.
Okay, so the amendment is just to change from decline the ad hoc grant to support the ad hoc grant. That's on the table, and this is seconded by Councillor Deacon. Any other questions, comments, or amendments? Seeing and hearing none. Do I need to reread it, or?
Would you mind if we put approve like we usually do instead of support?
Yeah,
Yeah, of
Okay.
course, yeah. So approve an ad hoc grant, correct? All right, so I will ask to vote on the amendment, all four, and that's passed. And now, Madame Camille Laflamme, do I need to reread the amended version, or because it's such a minor amendment, should we still reread it? Je vous laisse.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the second part, to approve
Yeah.
instead of decline.
Well, I was going to make you read it anyway, so
Okay.
yeah, that's good. All right. So, so I'll call for the vote on the,
I said
put it on the
questions.
table. Pardon me?
Questions or comments?
Questions and comments.
All right. So my comment and then my request of council is, I know I had concerns earlier about the CJRO 1 item. And did I say that right? CJRO?
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
I'm concerned that it's coming back for a second year and concerns of years going forward. But I heard Councillor Deacon as well that it's an important piece of the community that we should support it. So I will support this year, but I think council should direct staff to further investigate this item. And if it's something that's going to potentially come back year after year, what are our options on this? Like, where should we be? Come back with a report to council to say, what should we be doing in this circumstance? And, you know, is it something that, that council wants to support in the future? But I'll support it this year as is, but I think we need to really dig into it for future years.
So, so there is direction then, Monsieur Godin, does that make sense from yours, from the staff perspective in terms of that direction, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just to answer Councillor Laurie's question, it's our third year that our third time. So, and yes, they will be coming back every year. It's part of their operations. So
So we're supporting it this year by the looks of it, but Councillor Armstrong, sorry.
Yeah.
You said,
Yeah, can we make that we ask CGRO, that's Denis Lebrèche, to come and actually give a presentation to council about what they want and why they want it?
so, so I think that leads perfectly into what I thought should happen. If this is going to happen every year, then it should be a budget request as we deal with other presentations during the budget request period. Councillor Lauren?
And I mean, it's not like this is something new from a request perspective. We did it with the food bank for many years where we covered their rent in different facilities and whatnot. So, you know, we've had this type of thing, but we just need to make sure it goes in the right location, that we are aware of it. And if it's a recurring, we don't need to see it every year in that circumstance. So that's all.
Thank you. All right, so we have an amended version in front of us now, so an approved amended version. So I'll call for the vote for the amended version. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you, Council. Okay, moving to item K. So that council receives report CSAS CL 2025-04 dated April 14th, 2025, and approve the implementation of a death registration service and issuing burial permit by the Township of Russell, and 2, the proposed bylaw amend Schedule A2 licensing fees of the user fees and charges bylaw 2024-097. Putting it on the table, moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Questions, comments, amendments, deferrals? What? Oh, no, okay. I thought I missed something again.
No.
All right, Councillor Lauren.
This is the third one we've pulled, and the third one that I'm putting my hand up for an amendment. So I'm gonna propose that we defer this, and I think some of the questions that should come back to us and that I quickly thought of is whether we can release information to people or people that make inquiries. What information can we share? And, you know, things like date of death, next of kin, cause of death, like things like that. We just need to understand what that information is, if in fact it's something that we can share, if there are inquiries. because there could be inquiries regarding insurance claims, collection items, stuff like that, where people are trying to gain that information so that they can proceed in a different manner in terms of what they're doing. So, I'd lean on my background on the collection side of the world, and, we would require that death certificate, or at least the notification that there was a death at some point in time. So, anyway, I'm recommending deferral for that.
Thank you. I've got a recommendation for deferral. Do I have a seconder for deferral? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Madame Camille-Laflamme, is it clear on the direction in terms of the questions that need to be answered before this comes back?
Yes,
All right, good. So,
this probably will come back at the next meeting.
okay, formidable. So I call for the vote to defer this item. And passed. Thank you. All right. One last item, and I was going to say I just for Councillor Deacon, but I'll say L. All right. So item L. So just a procedural question, Madame Camille-Laflamme. Do I have to reread the whole thing before we put it on the table? Yes, I do. There's got to be a more efficient way of doing this. Yeah. The council received report CAO 2025-02 dated April 14th, 2025, and approve the implementation of a moderate Buy Canadian approach whereby the township would revise the procurement procedures to prioritize Canadian suppliers where feasible. Furthermore, that the staff be directed to, 1, review the procurement threshold and practices to support greater use of invitational processes for the contracts below trade agreement limits, and report back to council with proposed updates to the procurement policy. 2, promote participation from Canadian suppliers in upcoming procurement activities. And 3, monitor ongoing developments at the provincial and federal levels, including any potential indemnification or support measures for municipalities, and provide provide updates to council as needed. And this is moved by Councillor, putting on the table, Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Deacon. This is now on the table. Questions, comments, proposals for deferral? Weren't we discussing about deferring this? Okay. So, Councillor Deacon? Well, no, I can call for the vote.
I think that there was a deferral, so I'm going to propose a deferral of this item.
Okay, so this is being proposed to be deferred. Do I have a seconder on the deferral request? Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Questions, comments, discussions. Monsieur Godin, if there is a proposal to defer, do the staff have enough of an understanding what we're deferring for?
Merci, Mr. Maire. So if it's just a motion to defer, we can bring it back next meeting, unless there's something we want to change or
Thank you.
or adjust.
Councillor Deacon?
What I'd like to know is that discussion of, I think that there was an opportunity for us to look at the buy local, buy Canadian threshold. I heard from administration earlier when we were looking at simply removing the implementation aspect, that wasn't, that the furthermore staff be directed 1, 2, 3 was in fact the implementation that was being brought forward in the report. And so, and we're not quite ready to do that, as I understand, as a council. So I'm looking at number 1 in particular, that we defer, and rather than implement any changes in the procurement policy, that we have a further exploration of the thresholds that are currently in that policy, and what avenues there may be to look at those thresholds and propose bringing in not just a local, but also a Canadian. And I just want to say that I think the reason why this deferral is so difficult is because we don't know where we're going to be in 2 weeks. So it also is that important number 3 there, deferring so that there is ongoing monitoring of the situation, as well as developments at the provincial and federal levels that may inform this council to move in one way or the other. I'm hoping that's more clarity for my fellow members of council and administration on the deferral and what we would be looking for in a couple of weeks' time.
Conseiller Lalonde.
Yeah, I think my reasons of earlier to maybe defer is, I'm wondering too if there's an opportunity to provide us with a side-by-side comparison of what the current thresholds are and with the proposal, maybe in the moderate approach, what it might change them to see, how more aggressive or ambitious we could be with either raising limits that don't require soliciting outside of the township or the province. I'm just wondering if in that deferral there wouldn't be a way to present this differently so that we get to see what it is currently and what it could be in terms of, like I say, increasing thresholds or changing eligibility requirements in the tender process. It might be useful to have that at a glance, say, well, this is what it was, this is what it could be. So I just leave that thought
Thank you,
there.
Councillor Lalonde. So, Monsieur Godin, is that give you some direction? I think that if the deferral doesn't go through, likely this will just, there'll be a vote on it as it is. And so, what are your thoughts?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear. It would be simple enough to prepare a table just to show a side-by-side of the current thresholds versus what is being proposed in this option. So we could always bring that back.
All right. So I have a request for deferral. I have a seconder for deferral. I'm going to call for the vote to defer this item.
Mr. Mayor, just before we just defer, do we go for next meeting or do we say a future meeting? It's better to say when or at least.
Is it? Is it though?
Yes, because otherwise it's going to just stay there.
Yeah.
It might.
Monsieur, you'd like next meeting, Monsieur Godin, in terms of reality? Next meeting is?
That's not an issue yet. That's
Okay.
good.
Okay, so I have a proposal to defer until next meeting. It's on the table, so I'll call for the vote for the deferral. And that's passed. Thank you very much. All right. Is that it for the removed items? All right. Yeah, thank you.
Another break? His voice needs a break.
All right, so moving to item 16, bylaws. I'm going to need some guidance here. So bylaws impacted by the deferrals and amendments that were made. Can you just rhyme those off for me?
I believe there's only the one for the last one, bylaw 048 for the license fee for the death registration. So if we go and just say number 42 to 47, that's good because we'll just say that the bylaw 48 was removed from the agenda pursuant to council's direction at item 11K.
Okay.
What about 43?
43.
Okay, one at a time here.
What do we do with that one?
Yeah.
You removed number 4,
Waste
waste.
Yeah, so you're asking to repeal bylaw 2018-07. And so.
Number 2 is still in there. It was the.
And that's the number, yeah.
So the first one was the first bylaw, so that goes ahead. And number 2 was the amendment to the user fee. So they would both stay.
So that's no impact.
No impact on
Yeah,
that one?
on the
Okay.
frequency. Mr. Bourgon, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The waste bylaw did not include any mention of biweekly.
Okay.
Since it would had to be, to come back to council to remove other things in the bylaws.
Okay. Any other comments on this? No? Okay, so a motion that council approve bylaws 2025-042 to 2025-047 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. And this is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deacon. I'll call for the vote. Passed. Thank you all. So what comes after that? There we go, 10, 11, all right. Item 17, new business reports, we have none. Item 18, other business, business presented by council members. So 18A, I want to make sure I said this right, Councillor Deacon, the approach to buffering and land designation on the west side of the 417 Industrial Park. Councillor Deacon, if you want to speak to that.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking in. We're at 3.5 hours, and I'm looking at how I added 3 items to the agenda. My apologies. At the most recent meeting on the Township official plan last Monday, a comment was made regarding the buffer from the west side of the 417 Industrial Park, and I'm referring specifically to the lands that are to be redesignated as industrial employment lands, and the properties that redesignation would surround. I'm just looking at how the MCEA for the road expansion network has been completed. We have this draft township official plan nearing completion as well, and I'd like to know what the next steps are with determining the future of that buffer between that potential industrial and commercial activity coming in and the rural residential and agricultural properties. Yeah, I'd like to know, and personally, I'd like to know sooner or later what's going to happen with that, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Monsieur Bourgon? Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. Monsieur Bourgon, you can add if you have anything more to add. But yeah, we did receive those comments about that buffer zone through the official plan process. And like you mentioned, we just completed the EA for the road design. So I think on our end, so I don't today, and maybe my colleagues will see something different because we haven't had a chance to discuss this a lot, but I don't think I have a timeline to give council now, but what I can say is we are looking at that option as far as a designation change to agriculture. I think it has to be looked at more or analyzed more in depth because I don't think it's as simple as switching a designation, but it's definitely something that we, and I think the team was already considering in advance of that meeting. But Mr. Bourgon, if there's anything you wanted to add there.
Mr. Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So to add on that, following the recommendation of our the road pattern, we started looking into it to see how it would look in terms of the planning process, and as well to fall in line with the strat plan that EcoDev are currently working on. Because it's one thing, like, you need to keep your same, like, in the planning perspective, the same net if we're moving designations. So those are things that we need to look at.
To consider that.
To consider. So there's more to come to council on that topic.
Councillor Deacon?
And just referring, I appreciate that information, just referring back to the residents' comment itself, I believe the term that was used was comprehensive approach. And, you know, when things have come to council, I'm new here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it would usually when you're looking at minimum separation distances or buffers, you're looking at what proponent is coming in and what would be the appropriate separation distance given sensitive land use and the level of industry or activity that's happening there. So what I'd like to understand, what I'm hearing, I guess, from administration, I'd like confirmation, is that there is a more comprehensive, front-end view being looked at that may not go proponent by proponent, but rather a different strategy involving a plan ahead of time and redesignation, a proposal, a recommendation to council, for example, for redesignation and a set standard, for example.
So more of the policy
I hope I'm asking that
approach.
clearly.
Are you asking for more of a, you're looking to hope that this kind of comes out with a, like a general policy approach to
Yeah,
those
on the
type of-
front end, before we necessarily know each proponent that's coming in. I just want to see if that's what if I'm understanding that correctly, if this were the approach.
Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, by knowing that the road will stop, so right there, there's a setback from the last property to the neighboring, like, to those residents along Edie. And it fall in line with our financial plan of what we present to council by implementing a buffer zone. So that's all those little details we're looking at to bring back to council as a, like, full information under a report.
Okay.
And we will still need to look at individual, like, specific business to make sure that it's appropriate, and that if we're, like, we still need to review the zoning, there's still other distance required depending on the type of use as well.
Councillor Deacon? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I think what we're going to be looking at here is lands that abut on Edie Road and the residents of Edie Road, having some very restrictive zoning of those parcels of land, so that we ensure that the industrial properties that we have now, which are very general, are restricted to just uses that will have a minimal effect on those residences on Edie Road and Edie Road itself. So I think that's something that we're going to have to look carefully in a comprehensive zoning bylaw, and it may be zoned industrial exception, and that exception may have some very restricted uses that can be done that is compatible with the area along
Specific
Edie
to
Road,
that
that
area.
specific area. Now, Planning Committee, you have any comments?
Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, I think, what the process would be, is the restrictive nature of the zoning bylaw, specifically from a certain section of that last road all the way to the roundabout area, or is it not roundabout, circle?
Cul-de-sac.
Right through to the cul-de-sac. I mean, there's got to be a separation point at some point, and call it not necessarily a buffering zone, but a buffering zone for the buffer zone to the housing and to the street. I think is definitely easily done by a restrictive zoning bylaw for that area of the park.
Thank you. Councillor Deacon?
Thank you for those comments. I just have one more question for clarification. Because this was raised at a Russell Township official plan review public meeting, I'm under the impression that there may be members of the public that believe that a land redesignation could happen at a Russell Township level official plan. And my understanding is that it has to be an amendment at this point to the county's plan as well. So it would not appear in the Russell Township official plan without that already being reflected in the UCPR plan as well. Do I understand that correctly?
I believe they're two separate pieces of land, correct, Councillor Lauren?
Well, no, so there's two differences. There's the land designation, right?
I'm talking about designation.
And then there's the zoning.
Zoning, yeah.
So designation is what can go on there. The zoning is more restrictive as to what type of building or business or whatnot can go in that specific land designated area, right? So trade and industry is a big designation with lots of different things that can go into it. And then the zoning really identifies and focuses in on the particular nature of the business that you want to put there. So land designation is one thing, zoning is a totally different aspect of it.
And land designation is something that is done at both the township official plan, reflecting the land designations that are already set at this point in time in the UCPR official plan.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
So that will be part of the process, including the counties. Mr.
And
Bogon?
to add a small detail, like all the comments that were made last week at the planning committee when we did present the draft of DOP, we'll have a table that that gathers all the comments when it comes in front of council with like either answer or how it was addressed or why it was not addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we good with this item? We're good? Thank you. So 18B, construction along Notre Dame, communication plan, business impact, and traffic disruptions. So, Councillor Deacon, go ahead.
I've heard that there's going to be some significant construction on Notre Dame Street, but I don't yet have more information than that. And it was really nice out today, and I started thinking about how construction season's right around the corner. It has me asking, when will the public hear about what the plan is for Notre Dame work? And as well, like that's kind of on the infrastructure side, but I also have the question of if there are some major closures, some traffic disruptions, some parking access disruptions, is the township putting together a plan to support the local Main Street businesses during that period in terms of communications, signage, open for business campaign sort of
Excellent points.
support?
Excellent points, Councillor Deacon. So I had an email exchange with Mr. Jérémy Bouchard from the counties, considering Notre Dame is a county road and this is going to be a joint project. In terms of the communication piece, and that I am told is forthcoming in terms of as we get closer, once there are more details. I was told by counties in terms of the communication piece that they are waiting to finalize some details before they initiate more communication. So that's the one thing. But I do, and I think that we can never communicate enough, and so I'm happy to hear that you're bringing this up. But the other aspect that are really important, I think we need to start working on right now, is that business impact and traffic disruption pieces, like to have that understanding. And that has to go as part of EcoDev with our local businesses and so on. So I'm not sure exactly who can address that piece of the communication, but we'll start with you, Monsieur Bogon.
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So we are currently planning a public meeting on May 1st that will be held here. All the invitation will be sent out this week. So we'll talk about the construction phase 1 that will be happening this summer, but also of all the other phases of the project and all the improvements that will be made throughout the full reconstruction of Notre Dame. We are planning also to meet one by one with the businesses affected this summer. In terms of traffic, we're maintaining traffic as a local traffic only for that portion of construction. Full closure will happen, but for a short period of time. Again, like the businesses or home in the immediate affected area will be notified ahead of time. In terms of open for business, we did something similar 2 years ago for Craig Street. So that type of signage can be implemented for the construction.
Okay, Councillor Lauren.
If any of the construction or road closures or whatnot are done at any point during the current school year or the subsequent school year, I suggest we also reach out to the bus lines so that they are aware as well.
Excellent point, thank you.
They are, sorry, through Mr. Mayor, they are part of our distribution list with our municipal 511.
Okay.
So we are in tender process now. So obviously details like timing, construction will all be finalized once we select the contractor that will be performing the work.
Okay. Councillor Armstrong?
Is it one tender for both the actual road reconstruction and the storm sewer, or is this two separate tenders that we have to coordinate?
Monsieur Bogon?
So because of complexity, when you have two tenders, two contractors on site, it's all within one contract. We pre-selected 6 contractors that will be working with those 6 contractors for the entire length of the project. So the contracts is going to be split in portions, So we'll be coming back to council to award some portion of the contract as we're moving through construction.
So the contracts are awarded through us, even though it's a split project with the counties?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Since the focus, it's really the replacement of the storm sewers.
Okay. And so, just to reiterate, so May 1st is a set date. Right now, we're going to start promoting that open house set date. I would like to make sure that we have an active piece on our websites, pointing residents to that after that meeting, so that residents could be, someone just moving in or doesn't pay attention to the website and sees that, at least that they could be directed to a one-stop shop, knowing everything about what's going on there. And definitely for our businesses, I think it's crucial. I think those are really important points. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, just a question, more to either Mr. Godin or Madame Camille-Laflamme. Over the last little while, we've had a lot of public meetings, open houses and stuff like that are being done, and sometimes we mention it here during this part of the agenda. But I'm wondering if there shouldn't be a standing piece of section of our agenda that talks to what is coming up. And I know that there's stuff that goes out to the public with, this week or meetings this week and stuff like that, but I think when we're at the council table, there's a perfect opportunity to also have that information in our agenda that says, by the way, there's an open house coming up on this day, this day, this day. Then the next meeting, you either add more or delete whatever's on there, so that we have that public input or public consultation piece always listed in our agenda packages. Just a thought to consider anyway.
So certainly, perhaps, maybe Monsieur Godin, we can just look at item 24 and just where it says next meeting, also just what's coming up or something like that, and maybe we can look at that. In terms of, that would be output, right, Councillor Lauren? Because we're not getting input in terms of those dates. We're just providing output to the residents. Yeah. And so it's just another spot where we have that. I don't see any issues around that. Monsieur Godin, any thoughts on that?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So, I don't see any issues with it. I understand the request, so we can work with the clerk's office to see how we can.
Yeah, so my only concern would be if we had 20 items listed on 24. I'm not going to read all 24, I'm telling you right now. But it would be good to have a system where we have that available on the agenda somehow.
For the ones that are known.
Yeah,
We
of
know
course.
May 1st is coming up. Let's have it on the next two agendas.
Yeah. So I know that electronically we send that out. I get a notification every Friday, I believe, on what's happening in the coming week and so on. And so residents could already have that information very easily, but on paper, on the agenda, I agree. Councillor
Yeah,
Lauren?
and just to be clear, it's more to these public meetings, open house, stuff like that. I mean, the meetings of the other committees, I don't think is required here. I'm just suggesting like public meetings, open houses, and things like that we're doing, because we've been doing a lot of them recently, and there's probably more that they're gonna keep coming. So those are the ones I'm talking about.
Thank you. Anything else on this particular item, Councillor Deacon? Thank you. All right, so we're moving to 18C, tree bylaw. Councillor Deacon.
I asked for this to be added because I had sent an email into the administration over the weekend, maybe this morning, to say that I haven't had time to put my comments in on the draft bylaw quite yet, and I understand that may push back the timeline for the bylaw to return to council. I think that this is a bylaw that a lot of people are interested in and following, so I thought it would be worthwhile to add it as an item so that there's an understanding that this will likely push back the return of the bylaw to council, and asking administration if they would have a date that they would foresee it coming back.
So, Monsieur Godin, given the fact that we'd be delayed on some of the feedback, is it just a one-meeting delay, or are there issues more than that, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Donc, pour la part de l'administration, ce serait possible le 12 mai de ramener le rapport. Puis, je pense qu'on a fait une publicité la semaine passée pour avoir plus de commentaires des résidents. On prend refaire une autre publication pour voir s'il y a d'autres commentaires.
So it's a win-win that way. We'll ask residents for further feedback. Okay, I think that's fair. Everyone okay with that? That's good. Thank you. Excellent. Item 19, public consultations, hearings. We have none. Item 20, announcements. I believe that we have officially set a date for a Meet Me on Main Street in Russell. Monsieur Dagenet, can you just confirm that? It's yeah, it was just sent out and
Yeah, it's on the 15th of July. Yeah,
on
in
July
Russell.
15th. Yeah, so July 15th, Meet Me on Main Street in Russell. Looking forward to that event. Fantastic. And I hear Councillor Lalonde, are you open house?
In front of my house.
Okay, any other announcements, members of council? Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, just two quick ones. It's Holy Week this week, so in Russell on Friday, we have the Walk of the Cross with participation from all of the local churches, starting at Friday at 10 at the Russell Arena. Everybody is welcome. Et en le même genre de choses, l'église Saint-Jacques d'Embrun a les cérémonies pour toutes jeudi, vendredi et samedi encore. Tout le monde sont bienvenus.
Merci, conseiller. Councillor Lauren.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw a shout out to Madame Guital and her group at the arenas for another wonderful, I'd like to say hockey season, but there's much more that goes on in the arenas than hockey. Figure skating, broomball, public skating, and everything else that goes with that. So as someone who's in the arenas quite often, more than I probably should be, staff has always been welcoming. There's been minimal amount of negative interactions, and I can say that as someone who is known in the area, that there's been less and less concerns or complaints brought my way over the years. So great job. Hats off to, at least on the I'm in Russell more than often, but Kevin, Ben, and that group that are there. And on the Emblem side, the group there, I haven't heard any complaints there. So I think they've done a wonderful job this year. So great job again.
Excellent feedback. Thank you, Councillor Lauren.
Thank
Anything
you.
to add?
And yes, thank you. Big shout to that team. Nothing would happen without the team, so I will definitely pass on the message. Thank you for the
Please do.
good-
Merci, Madame Guital. All right, any other announcements? Councillor Deacon.
Just want to wish happy Passover to anyone who is observing Passover this week from the Jewish community. It's Volunteer Week starting April 27th, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention related to volunteering. On Saturday, the 26th, at the library, the Russell Township Public Library, there will be a dedication of a statue at 1 p.m. honoring the library volunteers. So the public's welcome to join, and maybe the next time you visit the Russell branch, you can appreciate the artwork that will be displayed in front of that branch going forward. And on that same day, volunteers across our community will be leading a trail cleanup that is organized by the Environmental Advisory Committee. It'll be all along the trail, as well as, I believe I'm going to be here at Russell Township Hall. Again, 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 26th. And these are just a couple of examples of how volunteers make our community such a special place to live. And so I want to give a special thank you to everyone in our community who volunteers their time.
Outstanding. It's going to be a great day on that day. And if, Monsieur Bourgon, I think your team is involved a little bit with the trail cleanup.
Oui, exactement. Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, notre équipe va assister le comité d'environnement là, pour rendre cet avant-midi-là encore plus pratique.
Yeah, it's a great event, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's a great one for our trail, too. It makes a big difference. All right, fantastic. Any other announcements? No? All right, moving to 21, strategic discussion. We have none. Item 22, closed session pursuant to Section 239(2), 3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Motion to move into closed session at the hour of 9:56. At PM to address matters pertaining to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to 1, pending litigation verbal update, S2E, litigation or potential litigation including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and 2, to review closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated March 10th. And this is moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Call for the vote to go into close and pass. We are now going into closed session. If anyone needs 2 seconds, 2 minutes, we can wait.